Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Nice.
I'd like to call to order the June the 10th, 2020 meeting of the Sebastian City Council. Would you please rise for the invocation by Pastor John Gill? Yeah, right there. That's the mic.
Let us pray. O God of peace and reconciliation, in these weeks just past, both our nation and our city council have been caught up in discord, anger, frustration, and grief. As the days continue to unfold, we seek your clarity and your peace. We know that you are with us and for us as we gather together to seek your counsel. Scripture reminds us, the more we seek you, the more we will find you. Lead all Americans, and even those in this chamber, to surrender our hearts so that you can lead us into the path of peace today. Come fully into our fraught situations, both as a nation and as a community. Sort out the muddled feelings and distorted thoughts that plague us. Cover us with a blanket of honesty, humility, and patience that is not of this world. Struggling for solutions amidst differing personalities can seem impossible. Thankfully, we are not expected to be perfect. Thankfully, we are told in the Bible that we all fall short. So as we gather here this evening, soften our hearts and our words, that we might listen to one another and seek the common good for all. Help us to endure disagreements and strife with godly courage and love. Grant us peace in knowing we are pursuing your purpose for our lives, for our community, and for our world. Amen.
And the Pledge of Allegiance led by Vice Mayor Malty. And I'm going to read the civility pledge. We will be respectful to one another even when we disagree. We will direct all comments to the issues, and we will avoid personal attacks. We have the roll call, please.
Mayor Dodd.
Here.
Vice Mayor Motti. Councilmember Gilliams. Here. Councilmember Hill.
Here.
And Councilmember Paris.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, no proclamations or awards this evening. Under brief announcements, all the families in the Sebastian can rejoice. The playgrounds will open on Saturday. Now, there's a couple of words of caution I want to put out, is that the CDC tells us that no matter how often we clean that playground equipment, we can't make it protective. So the parents have the responsibility of bringing hand sanitizer with them and trying to make sure their kids wash their hands or sanitize their hands often while they're playing on the equipment. But they will be open on Saturday. The next thing is the census. It's still going on. Sebastian has still got an extremely high rate of return, but at $1,700 per person that we don't get in this state from the federal government, 75% is not good enough. We need to get close to 100 because that's a lot of money that we can use to do things like streets and other types of things. So if you haven't done it, you should have received a letter from the federal government, from the Census Bureau, that has instructions. You can do it by phone, you can do it by mail, or you can do it by computer link. So please try to complete that if you can. Now let's go to the consent agenda, and I would like to pull item A.
Announcement, if that's okay.
Does anyone else like to pull something on the consent
No,
agenda?
I'd like to make an announcement also. Is that possible?
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. I just want to remind the community tomorrow, from what I understand, in Fellsmere, they're testing from 9:30 to 11:30. Just to remind everybody, it's free testing. So if you're concerned, please make an effort to get out to Fellsmere. I think it's the health clinic out there. Okay, and that's 9:30 in the morning. Thank you.
All right. Consent
Mayor
agenda.
Dodd?
Yes.
Mayor Dodd, if I could, did we go through agenda modifications yet?
Oh, no,
Yes, we did.
no, I did not go through agenda modifications. I'm sorry. Do you have agenda modifications you'd like to make? Anyone? Okay, seeing as there are no agenda modifications or proclamations, and we've done the announcements, now we
Mayor
can
Dodd?
move. Yes.
Mayor Dodd?
Yes, sir.
I apologize. I do have an agenda modification I'm trying to make. Unfortunately, trying to do this while on Zoom, and I have to go back and forth to my agenda. So if you'll bear with me for 1 second, I'll get the number for you.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I apologize for that delay. I would ask that all items under item 17B be removed from the agenda.
I'm going to object.
Okay. Councilmember Hill has asked that all items under 17B be removed from the agenda. It takes a unanimous vote to do that, and Councilmember Gilliam's objected to that, so,
Mayor Dodd, if I could.
yes.
There's a very important reason why we should have this removed from the agenda. The item under on the agenda right now could put the city of Sebastian in legal difficulty. I have grave concerns. Our city attorney has discussed that if Councilmember Gilliam continues to go along with his baseless allegations, that we may be in legal jeopardy due to defamation per se. So I think that the city should not be a part of allowing this to go forward. If he wants to get sued on his own, he can, but the city of Sebastian is at risk if we allow this to go forward. So I would ask again that council members would allow us to remove that item from the agenda so that it wouldn't look like we are sanctioning this blather.
Okay.
Once again, Mr. Mayor, I object. I'm not sure if Mr. Hill can hear me. I object. Thank you.
All right, we have an objection by Councilmember Gilliams. All right. All right, so under the consent agenda, I asked to, do we have a motion on item B of the consent agenda? That's the minutes from the May the 26th, or February the 26th. Wait a minute. I'm looking at the wrong minutes here. That's the minutes from February the 28th. Or, yeah, May the 27th, excuse me, May 27th minutes. That's item B. Do I have a motion on that?
Move approved.
All right, we have a motion by Councilmember Hill to move approval. Councilmember Gilliams seconded that. Any comments? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Okay, I asked to remove item A. I have a couple of changes I'd like to make to that, if I can. They're real simple changes. On page 4, which is page 9 of 84 in our packet, the second paragraph, which is in one sentence, I just wanted to do a little clarification on that because I believe it should read, it reads right now, Mayor Dodd summarized there was a special meeting request and it was improperly denied. What I would like for it to read is Mayor Dodd summarized the motion. Councilmember Gilliams moved that there was a special meeting request and that it was improperly denied. I want to make sure there's no confusion to make it sound like I changed your motion. And I think the original language in there was kind of unclear about that.
Well, I have an issue with making sure that we stick to the verbatim. Whatever is on the video is what's to be, if you got an issue with that, it should be transcribed the way it's on the video, not to be changed. So, because there's an issue that's going to come up later on under my matters, that under that meeting, actually it's the meeting thereafter on the 20, no, it was the 19th. So
Well, this is the 19th meeting.
yeah,
So
correct.
you would rather not modify what's in the minutes?
You can modify it, but it's got to read verbatim according to the video if you want to modify it to that effect.
Okay, I'll tell you what I do. The simplest thing for me to do is, page 10 is a duplicate of page 9.
I'm sorry?
Page 10 is a duplicate of page 9 on the May the 19th meetings. That's page, if you go back there, it's page 11 of, oh, let me go back to that, find it here. It's page 4, yeah, it's page 16 of 84 in our packet, is a duplicate of 15 of 84 in our packet.
Oh, it sure is.
Okay, so is that modification okay if we remove the duplicate page?
Yep, I don't have a problem with that.
Okay, I move we approve the minutes from the May the 19th meeting with the amendment to remove page 10, which is a duplicate page. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any comments?
Yeah, I'd like to reflect in these minutes that there was a concern of mine when we took that vote, and I was concerned that Charles had indicated he wanted to do an abstain, and you told him no, he could not, and you coerced him into taking a vote a different way.
He cannot.
Excuse me, let me finish, please.
Okay.
Thank you. So my concern is, he wanted to abstain on that vote, and you stopped him from abstaining, and that could open him up to liability for a conflict of interest. So I want that to be reflected. I'm not sure if we could put that in the minutes, but I will mention it later on in the meeting as well. I just think that for Charles's benefit, he had a right to abstain. There was a conflict of interest, and you forced him to vote. Thank you.
Mr. City Attorney, would you give me a...
I don't recall that during that meeting.
He did mention he wanted to abstain, and we told him no. Is there I don't believe he can abstain on a vote.
Abstain from
Voting.
If they
I don't
abstained, it would
believe
have
he
been
can
a
abstain from
2-2.
voting. I think he's required to vote.
Well, I think they are required to vote,
Yes.
but I have to look at but you are required to vote when you're on the dais. You cannot abstain
Yes.
from voting.
Yes.
Well, he had a conflict of interest, Mr. Attorney, and he should have did a conflict of interest form as well, and I just think that he should bring that vote back for a revote.
What was his conflict?
Well,
If there's a conflict of interest, Mr. Mayor, that's up to Vice Mayor Monti to
Yes,
bring up.
it's
That's
not
his
true.
obligation to bring up if he felt
Yes.
there was one, and if one, he would divulge it, file the appropriate forms, and give it to the city clerk.
well, yeah, Charles has a right to revote that and bring that back since he was in the yes vote.
Charles has a
Against-
right, you don't.
Mr. Monti, can we hear from
I
you?
understand that, Mr.
Okay.
Mayor, but I'd like to bring it to his attention that under the Florida statute, it's a $10,000 fine if you don't disclose you have a conflict of interest. So
Vice Mayor Malte, do you feel you have a conflict of interest on that vote?
I'm just concerned about him, that's all.
Vice Mayor Malte, do you feel you have a conflict of interest on that vote?
I do not feel I have a conflict of interest, and I think we can put it to rest now, please.
Okay. The Vice Mayor does not feel he has a conflict of interest, and it's his responsibility to report that, so
We can proceed.
we can proceed. We have a motion to approve these minutes made by me and seconded by Councilmember Hill. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Opposed.
Is that, I didn't hear. Councilmember Ferris, how did you vote?
Aye.
Okay, so, and you voted opposed, right? Member Hill, so it passes 4-1. Okay. We're now on to the committee reports, and we have a report by Brian from the Integrated Pest Management System. I think he's going to do that by Zoom.
Yes, sir. Good evening, Mayor, council members. Can you hear me?
We've got you.
Okay. All right. So, just to give you all an update on the integrated pest management process, I want to update you all that, through this whole COVID-19, we as staff members did not stop our process. We continued throughout the COVID-19 with working together, Ms. Hagler, myself, and our staff, to sort through chemical data in order to streamline into a single spreadsheet some of the chemicals that we presented at today's IPM meeting. We also, at the last meeting that we held, we provided the subcommittee members with a second draft of the IPM plan. And from that information, Ms. Hagler had received information from subcommittee members. As well, she reached out for outside input from industry professionals, and she compiled all that and into the draft document, and we're going to plan, based on our discussions today with the committee, to present the third draft of the IPM plan to the subcommittee next week. That agenda should be coming out later this week. Also during this time, Ms. Hagler, she's done quite a bit of work with this. She was able to coordinate with the Sebastian Garden Club and the Audubon Society to design and install a native garden for the enhancement of pollinators and native predators, or natural predators. This garden will be located at Garden Club Park, and we anticipate this to be the first of many that we begin to install in our city parks. And we hope to have this installation sometime later this month or into July, once all the details are finalized with the Garden Club and the Audubon Society. Ms. Hagler also has been working through the application process to acquire some air potato beetles from the University of Florida for a biological control method of the air potato vine, which has invaded some of our parks throughout the city. As I mentioned earlier, the subcommittee, we met earlier this afternoon, and the vote was to continue our weekly meetings. However, we are changing the day of the week that we meet in order just not to conflict with council meetings now that we have to do Zoom and some of the requirements with that. So going forward, our IPM subcommittee meetings will take place on Tuesdays at 3 p.m. We hope to have the final plan approved, so hopefully by later this month for the parks and properties. That way it gives the committee members, the subcommittee members, time to review the draft that we're going to present to them next week, have discussion, and I'm sure there's going to be a working document before it comes back. But we'll actually go to Parks and Rec Advisory Committee, and then it'll come to the City Council for your approval as well. Also, subcommittee members also showed an interest in participating in the creation of the Stormwater Integrated Pest Management Plan, which will be coming. We will start that process as we continue to finalize the parks, and then we'll move into the stormwater plan. And today, the chemical control spreadsheet was discussed in depth as committee members began shaping the decision-making process for chemical use. Factors determining use of chemicals included targeted pests, active ingredients, the percent of concentrate of active ingredients, pest tolerance thresholds, environmental effects, their proven effectiveness, the labeled hazard level, what the cost is per 1,000 square feet. So in our chart currently, we just included the cost per gallon or per pound, per 25 pounds, per 50 pounds. And the subcommittee asked us to break that down into the cost per 1,000 square feet. So we're going to work to do that for them. So it gives them a more accurate amount of what each chemical requires the cost to be for that. And also the type of park that each one of these chemicals will be permitted to be used. And so that was kind of our next step in it. We had previous meetings discussed mechanical, biological, and cultural controls. So we had to have the discussion on chemicals, and we began to outline that today. And so that kind of went through that process of each one of those 4 processes. And now we're moving forward in, as I mentioned earlier, in the IPM draft plan.
Does anyone have any questions for Brian? Yes.
I just wanted to say that I watched the meeting today, the IPM meeting, and I'm very impressed by Brian's work and the work of that committee. They're doing an outstanding job. I'm very impressed that they're looking at all of the factors that are involved in the generation and creation of an integrated pest management program. So I look forward to their continued success as they're doing a great job. I love the way they're breaking things down with, extra dollar signs to say how much each chemical costs. Brian's breaking it down to the cost per 1,000 square foot rather than the cost per gallon, which makes complete and total sense. So I just want to say I'm very proud of the staff here at the city. Brian, you're doing a hell of a job. I'm very, very happy with the way this is progressing. So kudos to you guys.
Anyone else?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Brian, I'd just like to get an update on the Hardy Park and the canals on Wimbrow, Layport. Also, the other canals are over on Concha since we stopped spraying. Can you just elaborate a little on that?
I can't provide an update on the canals. I oversee the parks and that process, so I do not have an update on the canals. However, I do know at today's meeting, we did, have a discussion with our current Integrated Pest Management Committee to see which of those members were interested in continuing as we go into the stormwater IPM process.
Mr. Carlisle, if you got something you can do.
So, if I may, Mr. Mayor, we're getting quotes from contractors to come in and try to do mechanical harvesting around Hardy Park, and so we're just waiting for those quotes to come in. Ken has met with 2 contractors. One contractor wasn't interested and it didn't feel that their equipment would be able to get it out of there, and a scheduling conflict. So we've got 2 companies that are giving us quotes on starting to do some mechanical harvesting.
Okay.
And we'll bring that back to you all.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor? Yeah. Mr. City Manager, do you anticipate roughly 30, 60, 90 days on that?
To get the quotes back?
Yeah.
I would estimate we'd have the quotes back in a couple weeks.
Couple of weeks, and
Yeah,
then...
because they've both been out there, they've both looked at the project, and it's a perfect spot to try it.
Would it be
see how
safe
it
to say,
works.
would it be safe to say in 60 to 90 days, somebody will be out there cleaning up the...
It's going to depend on their schedule, but we want to push to it as quickly as possible.
Okay, because I'm
that-
I'm getting people calling me
Yes.
and I don't know what to tell them. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to comment on that too, if I may.
Yes.
Thank you, Brian, for your continued efforts, Dr. Cox, everyone involved in the IPN. Once again, doing all this through what we've been through this past few months is just outstanding work. Thank you. And I had a conversation with the city manager as well about, because we are getting emails, and yes, the canals look very bad, but this is the way Mother Nature redeems itself. There's who knows how many feet of muck, of dead weeds under these waters. So, before applying another chemical, it's great to know that we're going to have it removed mechanically, and we can look forward to a healthier Sebastian shortly. Thank you, Paul.
Anyone else? Comments?
Mayor Dodd?
Yes.
I would just suggest to the public that this is exactly what we discussed when the city council decided to stop spraying our canals without having a plan. We decided this months ago, and unfortunately, this is exactly what you can expect. You can expect that these weeds are going to completely inundate the canals in this city. Mechanical harvesters will not be able to keep up with it. Understandably, people want to stop or minimize the spraying of canals. I get that. I do too, because I understand what integrated pest management is. But to just completely eliminate spraying without having any plan, this is what you get. This is what this council has given you. These weeds, these clogged canals is what this council has given you.
I beg to differ. The city manager has been working on this diligently, so.
All right, thank you, guys. Let's, Brian, are you finished?
Yes, sir, thank you.
All right, thank you, guys. Public input.
Mr. Mayor, before you get started on that,
Yes, sir.
we had some issues at the last public input that I would like to remind you and bring to your attention. There was 2 bodily threats made. One came over Zoom without a picture. I spoke to the chief of police and we could not trace that person. So I'm requesting the mayor and the city council that if anybody wants to speak on Zoom, we need to know exactly who they are. We need to either see a face or we need to get a proper name. Okay, because we had no way of tracing that individual. And there was another threat that was made that you did not interfere and stop the meeting to remind the people here that it's unacceptable. We're here as public servants. We don't always make the right and best decisions for everybody, but threats are unacceptable. And I hope that you will stop it, Mr. Mayor, since you're leading the meeting. Thank you.
Barbara,
Yes.
do you have video on the majority of the Zoom?
Not with the public.
Not with
I
the-
can't always guarantee that
Okay,
I
so,
can get them
all right, so,
connected.
but we will, okay, we will ask for a
We just have to
name.
reiterate that we need to make sure we can hear their name in
We'll hear
its
their name. All right,
entirety.
But
thank you.
Mr. Mayor, they can give you any name, okay? Everybody has an alias, okay? We need to see a face so we can put a face.
I'm not going to stop public input when we don't have a video.
Well, if the threats continue,
If the threat, Councilmember Gilliams, I agree with you 100% that there should be no threats.
okay.
All right, I'm not disagreeing with you at all. So,
How about name and address? That was
so
rectified.
we'll get a name.
And
on
an
it.
address, and a proper
That we
address?
know who they are.
I don't even know that we can ask for an address. Vanny?
If I can, I think it's appropriate for you as mayor to control, like you've been doing, but I do not recommend stifling at this point, since we're in this situation with COVID-19, and allow the public input. I don't think it's inappropriate to ask them for their name, addresses. They can give Sebastian, but I'm not sure specifically their address.
All right, thank you. Okay, we'll do that. Let's start with the people inside the room, and we started there last time, we'll start over here and in the back corner. If you're interested in making a public comment, you can come forward, please. Sir, all the way in the back in the green shirt. Okay, next person in line.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. My name is Bob Stephen. I live at 150 Concha Drive here in Sebastian. My phone number is 603-393-6636. And you're all welcome to come to my house and look at the canals. I live where 3 big canals meet and they head toward the St. Sebastian River. I want to thank all the council members for voting out the poisons, because now we have live animals, birds, fish in our canals. When we had the poisons, we didn't. I'm here this evening to address 4 issues. Number 1, I want to support the 3 new council members and to remind you that they were voted in to ensure that our citizens could clearly see how their hard-earned tax monies are being spent. We call this full transparency, something that was not being done, I feel, by the previous council. Number 2, I initially became involved with the politics of this city because of the excessive and irresponsible spraying of poisons throughout our canal system. I am thankful of the current moratorium of the spraying, but I see that there has been no attempt at the manual maintenance of these canals. Have you not done so to justify spraying again in November? I mean, I heard Mr. Hill, and I don't even know whether he should be involved in this, because that's what he does for a living, is use chemicals. I don't know. We haven't done anything to our canals. We have red pepper trees going across the canals. Shouldn't we be snipping a little? Anyways, our canals haven't been looked at. Number 3, my third concern is the stormwater park on Angler Drive. Right across from my house, I've got a big, beautiful stormwater park. It is a multi-million-dollar park that was designed to clean the canal system throughout our city. I've asked before why this park is not being used, and they keep giving me ridiculous answers. I don't go into that. The stupid answers I'm getting. The rest of this state is currently busy creating and building these parks for multi-billions of dollars. And here we have one right here we're not even using. Number 4, lastly, I see you are about to put $5 million, oh wait, the last consent agenda, it was $8 million into an airport. An airport. We can't even fly in and out of this airport. So what are we putting money into this thing? It's a glorified flight school for touch and go training, mainly for foreign students if you look at them. Need I remind you that the pilots of the 9/11 attack were trained here in Florida? And don't forget the health effects for people living around airports. Not real good. I speak of these issues because I feel it is my duty to let the citizens of this city know what is actually occurring in this city. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, council members. I'd appreciate it if you didn't butt into my conversation. I don't do it to you.
Sir, direct your comments to me, please.
I was being interrupted in things here, and I
okay,
didn't
but
appreciate it.
direct your comments to me.
Sorry.
Thank you. Next in line, sir. In the gray shirt, lady in the end. Next person, Mr. Herman.
My name is Russell Herman. I reside at 586 Redwood Court. Good evening, members of the council. Last November, voters spoke clearly. They ousted 3 council members who had ignored public sentiment and had hurriedly approved annexing 1,100 acres owned by the Graves brothers. They ousted city council members who had largely ignored 4 years of public pressure to stop spraying hazardous chemicals into the canals and city ponds. Residents voted overwhelmingly to take back Sebastian and open the doors of city government, to bring transparency to City Hall decision-making. What has happened since November? The 3 reform Take Back Sebastian council members, despite threats and intimidation and an effort to force a recall vote, have made substantial progress on their agenda. The annexation of the Graves brothers' property is stalled, not so much over the annexation itself, as over the proposed future land use plan that was widely criticized by not only city residents, but by reviewing county, regional, and state agencies. The 3 new council members have prevailed on the mayor and the administration to put spraying toxic chemicals largely on hold until city staff completed what are called integrated pest management plans for the city parks, recreation areas, and canals and ponds. Work on these IPM plan is moving along. As for transparency, the Take Back Sebastian members have forced more careful and deliberate examinations of many of the council agenda items, spending and contract items which in the past may have slid by without a thorough scrutiny by council members. Transparency is not a negative. On the contrary, it is a positive action, permitting the government to explain to the residents all the positive actions they are taking to improve our city. We know that many members of the public are disturbed by the demeanor of the city council as a whole, of members new and old. The press has had a field day characterizing the council actions as in permanent state of crisis and confusion. The crisis is the result of an attempt to overthrow the election results of last November. The recall candidates lost by large margins last November, and their supporters will have a chance in the coming election this year and next to vote on the accomplishments of the city majority. It should be obvious that the Take Back Sebastian members have a positive, inclusive agenda, and they are making progress, getting positive results. Thank you for your attention to these matters.
Thank you, sir. Next person. Wait a minute. That gentleman right there, yes. No, not you, it's behind you. You're going to be the last one on that side.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Richard Gilmore, 744 Crowell Avenue. I have some information that I'd like to share with you. Before I left City Council to run for higher office in 2012, our city manager, Al Minner, spoke to me, and I believe most other council members, about a plan to buy an adjoining piece of property to our cemetery. He told me that the price of the land would be mitigated by our being able to sell off the sugar sand, fine white playbox sand that was on the property to the tune of probably 8 to 10 feet deep, okay? He said that the sand was worth over $100,000. Now, it was later, next year, when he brought that to council. I wasn't on council, I took a year off. He made the same presentation to the council members. and the council approved that. So to make a long story short, what happened to the sand? Did the city give it away? No, they didn't give it away. That's the good news. Well, what's the bad news? We paid to have it hauled off. Plus, the low bidder in this boondoggle was also a sand mine owner who we allowed for him to set up shop on the property, screen the sand before he hauled it off to sell it. And he was on that property for probably 4 to 6 months. You know, you can't make stuff like this up. Here's another one. Did you hear about the developer who came to city council bypassing planning and zoning and requested 7, count them, 7 variances so he could build and put up an 18-unit hotel on a small piece of land on the riverfront that had previously only supported 3 units? And lo and behold, this city council, with, I believe, 2 nay votes, myself being one of those, rubber stamped the project because Tom's a good old boy. Oh, here's one. The city council decides it knows best, doesn't schedule any public workshops to explain the annexation of thousands of acres of land to the city, finally schedules a middle of the summer meeting to approve the annexation and votes 5-0 to go ahead with it after hundreds of residents show up to speak against the annexation. And then the 2 remaining council members are shocked when all 3 incumbents are tossed out of office at the next election. Fast forward to March 11th, 2020. That's an important date. I want you to remember March 11th. That's the date stamped on the recall petition paperwork for the recall group trying to recall these 3 council members. Let me read from Florida statutes. When the petition may be filed, no petition to recall any member of the governing body of a municipality shall be filed until the member has served 1/4 of his or her term of office. Well, let's see. Mr. Mayor, it's a 2-year term, and I'm not a math major, but 1/4 of that would be 6 months, wouldn't it? I think 6 months. And this paperwork was filed less than 4 months after you all, Vice Mayor Mayor.
Which paperwork are you talking about? I'm confused on that one.
Well, the paperwork was the appointment of a treasurer. They had already had a...
Okay, that was the creation of their 501(c) corporation. Yes. Okay. Now I understand what you're talking about.
Stamped here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they created a 501(c) corporation at that time. I understand
So that's an important date. So the recall committee was up and running well before 1/4 of their terms were completed. And a month and 11 days before the event, the illegal meeting took place on April 22nd. They must be psychic. They knew that you guys are going to screw up. They just knew it. So does anybody else here think that this is a total political hit job other than me? Let me read the 7 reasons the Florida statutes allow a person to be recalled. Malfeasance, misfeasance, neglect of duty, drunkenness, incompetence, permanent inability to perform official duties, and last but not least, conviction of a felony involving moral turpitude. Now, the statute in the state says that you can't recall someone for 6 months for good reason or for 1/4 of their term. You know, it's a long learning curve. When you get put on council and you've not been in council before, on any board, there's a learning curve there. And it takes a while to understand the Sunshine Law and all the little quirks about that, okay? So I believe the state believed that you shouldn't have somebody recalled before they had a chance to do a decent job. I don't think any of you have been drunk up there. I don't see any malfeasance. I don't see any misfeasance.
30 seconds, sir.
And so guys, just get along. That's all the city wants. And the city residents, if there's anything I know about City of Sebastian residents, is they are fair. This whole process that is going on now is unfair. Thank you very much. Thank you for your service.
Mr. Mayor, just for clarification for former Mayor Gilmore, and in defense of the contractor who was clearing the property at the cemetery, he did not get paid. Just for clarification. And
you're going to have plenty of opportunity
I know
later
that,
on
but
to
I just,
discuss
while
that.
it's fresh in everybody's mind,
Would you please cease?
I just wanted to let him know.
Mr. Gilmore, cease. Sure. Next person would like to speak, please. Let's go.
Michelle Morris. My address is confidential per Florida state statute, as you all are aware. I just want to remind council and Mr. Gilliams that I am still waiting his public apology for accusing me of unethical behavior. He's had plenty of time to find his error, but I'm sure he will never admit this error because he's already shown myself as well as the rest of the citizens the character that he has. Also, so it seems Mr. Gilliams now wants to be the spokesperson for not only Miss Paris, but also Mr. Motti. I applaud you, Mr. Motti, for at least standing up for yourself and for not succumbing to Gilliam's self-induced trials and tribulations any further. I truly had higher expectations for council members Paris, Motti, and Gilliams when they were elected. And the only positive thing I can say is that at least Mr. Motti is trying to rectify his mistakes. The other two are apparently going to continue to cost us more money. If you are truly for the people, then you need to resign and give us back our respect. You've embarrassed yourselves and you've embarrassed our city long enough.
Ms. Coy. You'll be last.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before I get to what I'm going to read, just a quick question about the reason that we're having tonight's meeting. I'm looking at an agenda that's empty. We had a report. That was a valuable report, but nothing that couldn't wait till the next meeting at the end of the month. There is absolutely nothing on this agenda that had to be done tonight. I guess we got so used to having meetings, one after another, that maybe we would have missed it. I don't know. But it seems to me that there's only one main purpose of this meeting tonight, and that's to hear Councilmember Gilliam speak on ad infinitum about 50 pages, 60 pages that he's included of old history. And I think it's a terrible waste of time, Mr. Mayor. Your time, our time, city staff time. But it is what it is, and we're here. So now on to what I really want to talk about. If you listen to the first three speakers tonight, you would think that the city of Sebastian has just gone to hell in a handbasket and that we haven't done anything right over the years. Fact is, Sebastian remains probably one of the most wonderful places to live. We have just a little hiccup now. And I wanted to read what I sent to the governor and Senator Mayfield and Aaron Grawl, my last letter to them, to the Honorable Senator Mayfield. This morning, Thursday, June 4th, Sebastian Vice Mayor Charles Mouty appeared in Indian River County District Court before Judge Nicole Menz for a hearing, 2020, and it has a number, State of Florida versus Mouty Charles Martin. Vice Mayor Mouty pleaded no contest to public order crimes, public meeting law violation 286.011, parent 3A. This charge is a direct result of the state attorney's criminal investigation of 3 Sebastian City Council members for an unadvertised and undocumented meeting on April 22nd, 2020 at 6 p.m. Over the past 4 to 5 weeks, you have received numerous letters from Sebastian residents who are outraged that they were locked out of a meeting where the mayor was replaced and all 3 charter officers were fired. We know this because one of their cronies took a home video of the illegal meeting, and they were so pleased with themselves that they gave copies to the press. Judge Kroom voided the meeting ab initio in a previous hearing. Vice Mayor Mouty was a willing participant in this charade and appeared to be reading from a script when he was able to repeat verbatim the lengthy and complicated motions made by Councilmember Gilliam. There are multiple violations of the Sunshine Law involved with this case, and we are patiently waiting for Gilliams and Paris to be charged. Since it is not possible to violate the Sunshine Law by oneself, and Mr. Mouty is cooperating, We anticipate it's only a matter of time before Gilliams and Paris are charged. In the meantime, 3 council members are running roughshod over our city. Local voters have decided to initiate a recall of all 3 council members and have completed round 1 of the recall petition drive. We are waiting to hear from County Supervisor of Elections to continue the recall. The process takes forever, so we are asking that Governor DeSantis suspend all 3 now and temporarily nominate 3 replacements until after the completion of the state attorney investigation. Many qualified and non-controversial residents are willing to step up to the plate for this cause. Please help us clean up this mess. Andrea Coy. And oh, by the way, let me introduce you. To the uniform that Mr. Gilliam says I'm a disgrace to, and I'm very proud that I wore for 21 years. I too, sir, am awaiting an apology.
Thank you, ma'am. Sir.
Nicholas Szyskowski, Sebastian, Florida. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for letting me speak tonight. On the back of my shirt is a group that I wholeheartedly support, but I speak for myself today and not the group. Mr. Gilmore gave reference to the date of March 11th. Just for the record, that's my birthday. To go on forward. You had a gentleman up here before that said he lived on the canal. I also live on the canal. I maintain the shoreline in front of my home. I weed whack. I pick up the trash that gets caught up in all the weeds, throw all this stuff away in the garbage. The nice thing I can say is, one man's junkyard is another man's palace. Unfortunately, I have to look at a junkyard. Last month, we had a gentleman here who talked about the return of the fish and the return of the birds to the canal. Well, let me tell you, they never left. They've always been there. I fish there all the time. I get a cell phone. I'll show you the pictures of the fish. I'll show you the pictures of birds. The cardinals love to peck at my green bean sprouts and pick away. But that's enough. The second thing on my mind is, Mr. Morty, in spite of your recent plea, I really find it disturbing that you still want to sit up there and represent the city of Sebastian. The people of Sebastian have expressed a desire to have you removed from office. I would urge you, please, do that, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. On this side, you're next, if you'd like to speak.
Thank you, Council. My name is Jonathan Rodeback. I'm an attorney at the law firm Dill Evans and Rodeback. That's located at 1565 U.S. Highway 1. And I'm here to expand upon the concerns raised by Councilmember Hill regarding item 17B on the agenda. Specifically, I represent Henry Fisher and Sons. And in 17B, there are certain allegations made about impropriety in connection with the acquisition and excavation of the cemetery expansion. Specifically in that FDLE report, there was a conversation between one of the council members and some agents at FDLE alleging some certain impropriety, most of which does not apply to my client, but one does. By way of background, about 3 years ago, Henry Fisher, you all probably know him as Hank, was contacted by Dr. Kip Kelso to offer a bid to level, excavate, and clear the cemetery expansion parcel. In compliance with that, Hank submitted the bid. It's right in your packet, page 46. 3-4 months later, gets a call, he got the job. Everything else is a conspiracy theory. You put it, pages 83, 84 in that FDLE report, there's allegations of cover-ups, there's allegations of kickbacks, I have no idea where it's coming from. There's a reference to a city manager's campaign. Last I checked, city managers aren't elected officials. They don't have campaigns. There's even an allegation that another reputable contractor in town submitted a fake bid, even though this contractor's been in business 20, 25, 30 years. It's unfounded. I am here to say that I understand y'all are in a little bit of a civil war going on here, but do not drag private citizens into this fight to benefit your political position. Being a public officer does not give you a right to defame my client. It does not give you the right to misuse your public position to obtain leverage in your political process. We have a court reporter here. We'll be taking down everything that's said tonight. I strongly urge, I implore council to please reconsider the discussion of agenda item 17B. And thank you for your time.
Thank you. Ma'am.
My name's Tracy Cole, and because of written threats from a council member to my home, I prefer not to give my address, although he already knows it. I'm hoping someone with authority in the state's attorney's office and senator's office is watching via Zoom. The citizens of Sebastian have worked hard to protect our city from 3 council members that are tearing our city apart. We have been lied to. We have had our trust broken. We've been threatened. We've been followed around by a council member with a bullhorn. We've had citizens followed in neighborhoods trying to get petitions signed, and by a councilwoman. We have been falsely accused of being violent, and the councilwoman says she needs our police department to escort her to the car after meetings, yet follows citizens around their neighborhoods trying to collect signatures. Our city is being held hostage by these 3, while our canals are being choked off and our parks are being useless due to fire ants. Citizens have done our part. We are asking our senator and our state's attorney's office to intervene for us by removing these 3. We were given 30 days to get a total of 6,000 signatures from voters, and for our first step, and in 47 hours, we had more than 7,400. More signatures than the 3 had for votes. They are not representing us. Councilmember Malty pleaded no contest and has said in many emails he would do what we have asked, yet you still sit here. The false allegations against honorable citizens and business owners of Sebastian needs to stop. Our voice is loud and will be getting louder until the senator, governor, and state's attorney's office hear us. If a total grassroots movement is not acted on by officials, what is that saying to the citizens of Sebastian? Are we supposed to just sit by and watch these 3 tear our city apart? We will finish this recall because the citizens of Sebastian are people of honor, and we finish what we start. We are asking the officials of our state to put these 3 in a timeout so the lawsuits don't keep piling up and bankrupt us. I demand Charles, Pam, Damien to respect the voters' voice and to resign. Every meeting that you are at opens up more and more lawsuits, which we just heard you're getting ready to do. You talk about full transparency, yet you lock all the citizens out of this room and had an illegal meeting firing our whole staff. That's not transparency. That's underhanded robbery of our city. So we demand you to honor what you're here for, to do what the citizens say, and we demand you to resign.
Thank you. Sir.
Good evening. My name is Tim Cole. I live in Sebastian. I'm following up on my wife's written request for Damien's private cell phone records. Not only did he keep repeating his personal cell phone number over his bullhorn at the park and ask for people to call him, He also lied and said that no one called him. We have seen multiple text messages from citizens and him. He was still texting people until 2 a.m. from his cell phone. My wife also made another written request after the last council meeting and sent a picture of him standing up to take a picture of my wife bending over to get something out of a petition box. This is blatant disrespect of my wife. I feel this is more than enough reason to ask the city to take his phone and have it checked by the professionals of every text and picture, even if it has been deleted. Damien has erased his city phone with no consequences, and now gives out his private number. I want his phone taken and the contents shared with me and the public. And on a private note, I hope that 2 of the members up there are being entertained because they are laughing and not paying attention. That is disrespect. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. On the end.
My name is Bill Flynn. I live on Main Street. I've been a resident for over 30 years. I've seen Sebastian go through a lot of things, but the 3 that are up, that cost us a lot of money have received more petitions than they got votes. I find it odd that if I was going to hire a lawn company to cut my grass, I wouldn't sell the lawnmower 3 months before I could before they could start cutting my grass. That's what it seems happened in our canals. Also, as a Sebastian resident, I strongly urge the council to reconsider talking about the sugar sand, because you've cost us enough in lawsuits, Damien. You lied to me.
Sir,
I'm sorry.
Address your comments to me.
One of the council members, I got involved in the recall because on a Facebook page, she called us obese carpetbaggers. Then I found out a lot about another council member who refused to pay their property taxes in a timely manner. As a leader of the community, you should be setting an example, not smirking at somebody that's speaking at a council meeting. I strongly urge the 3 that's cost the city so much damage, in not just money, but in reputation, to step down, do the right thing, take care of your health, regroup. I could understand a learning process, but as a mechanic, when I was learning in my grandpa's shop, I kept my mouth shut and my ears open in the initial phase, which was 2 or 3 years. I suggest that while you're still on the council, you new ones, keep your mouth shut and your ears open. That's all I got to say.
Thank you, sir. Ma'am, in the second row, do you want to come up?
Sharon Herman, City of Sebastian, and I just have a few comments. I wanted to remind y'all that, again, there was slightly less than 2,500 signatures for each of Mr. Gillums, Ms. Paris, and Mr. Motti, which was more than they were elected with signatures for our recall petitions. Mr. Gillums has repeatedly stated that if he lost the support of the citizens, he would step down. So, Mr. Mayor, I'm guessing maybe it's time he started stepping down and resigned. I feel like Mr. Motti has really been trying, and we see this, we really do. But considering his recent court appearance, maybe it's time. Ms. Paris, it's just time, just resign. On a side note, I was kind of hoping that the meeting would be kind of void of the interruptions and be both quicker and productive with a limited agenda, but it doesn't sound like it's going to go that way. The other things that I think, there's a lot of things that I'm sure that maybe these councilmen think they've done since they've been elected, but I wanted to remind you there is a few things that they've also done. They've also put us in a lawsuit with some sunshine lawyers that, with their past track records, tend to get from $1 to $3 million out of cities that they sue. And they are good at this. They do this, that is their living. And we're put in this position because of these 3 council members. One of these council members is also suing the city, I think, for $30,000 or something, if that's still going on. Sounds like pocket money, personal pocket money, I'm not sure. The moratorium on the canals, I understand, was pushed through, and now everybody's complaining about the overgrowth because there was nothing in there. And I watched that meeting this afternoon about regarding the ants and things like that. Those people are really, they are doing their research, they're getting their information, they're not letting things get out of control, they're making a plan, and that's what you need is a plan. You can't just go off half crazy and make decisions like that and not understand that the consequences can be more expensive and more costly on many levels than the original product in the first place. Sugar sand and potential new lawsuit, I just have one really good question, and that is, how is that looking out for the city of Sebastian for oversight and watching our spending and saving us money? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am?
Good evening. Thank you, council, for being here tonight. My name is Grace Reed. I am a Sebastian resident, Sebastian voter, and a Sebastian taxpayer. I'm not here tonight to ask anybody to resign. That's very evident, and I do feel like there are 3 that should. However, I do want to address a couple of things that may or may not be coming up at future council meetings. There's an upcoming Board of Adjustment meeting scheduled for June 24th for Mr. Scazzari. At Mr. Gillum's own statements during council meetings and with others in the courtyard, he is either a very good friend of Mr. Scazzari, or he has felt that Mr. Scazzari's actions were in a manner that he had to throw him out of his place. Seeing how there is such a friendly to volatile relationship between the two, in an effort to eliminate the chance of any presumption of favoritism or discrimination and possibly costing this city additional money, I am insisting that Mr. Gillums recuse himself from any conversation, testimony, or voting in this upcoming matter. In past council meetings, Mr. Gillums has suggested the council have discussions on how the city can help the small businesses that have been affected adversely from the pandemic. Mr. Gillums and his family are small business owners and own a building that houses several small businesses that would directly affect his personal profit or loss. According to the Sunshine Guidance to Ethics on the Sebastian Elections website, no public officer shall vote in an official capacity upon any measure which would ensure to his or her special private gain or loss, or which the officer knows would inure to the gain or loss of any principal by whom he or she is retained. I am insisting that prior to any discussions by this council regarding small business appropriations, that Mr. Gillums recuse himself from any conversations, testimonies, or voting, and follow all guidelines to file all memorandums necessary for voting conflicts of interest. Prior to tonight's council matters, Mr. Mayor, if Mr. Gillums insists on going through with this sugar sand conversation, if he intends to use the overhead projector, I'm requesting that he doesn't. The last time he attempted to use it, the public couldn't see anything from the TV, you couldn't see it from here, you couldn't understand what it was on Zoom. The documents couldn't be seen using this thing, so it's just a complete waste of time for the people here, on TV, and everywhere else. So I suggest he do his grandstanding from his seat. The other thing that is in there is an agenda conversation from Ms. Paris. I think her misguided attempt to silence the public with time limits is probably not going to work. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see.
Hi, I'm a little nervous, so
That's
please
all
bear
right.
with
Talk
My
straight to
name is
me.
Kathy
Don't worry
Klein,
about it.
And I live in Sebastian.
Yes.
Please bear with me. I'm not a public speaker.
Would you give your name, please?
I'm sorry, sir?
Your name, please. I'm sorry.
My name is Kathy Klein,
Okay.
and I live in Sebastian. So please bear with me. I'm not a public speaker, but after seeing, hearing, and reading what has been going on in Sebastian, I must speak out. Where were the Sebastian voters for the 2019 election, in which a small percentage voted and now want a recall? I voted for Charles Maudie, and some want to cancel my vote. Much of what you read in the papers, online, etc., is one-sided. So let me tell you what I know of this man. Charlie is a man of high integrity. He's well-educated and he is honest. He has worked in the planning and zoning department, and he likes to work with others to come to a solution. But he's not a politician. He's just what I feel Sebastian needs. April 22nd, yes, there was a city council meeting, and we had a pandemic, and he did attend, but he didn't look at his emails. And there were 3 people present, which equals a quorum. In closing, I'd like to say some council people have their own agendas, but Maudie's is the city of Sebastian and the people that live here. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Louise Cottenberg, and I live in Sebastian, and we'll just keep my personal address to myself. I'd just like to say that it's very disheartening to hear a continuing, ongoing tape of half-truths, misstatements, insinuations, and this evening was no exception to it. Partial facts, I guess we could call them partial facts. Mr. Gilmore mentioned an 18-unit building that was built and that they came directly to council and bypassed planning and zoning. That's not true. I was on planning and zoning. I was there. I remember the meeting. I think Mr. Maudie was there as well. I'm not too sure about that one. We hear constant reminders that we want transparency. Well, transparency is the definition of government in the sunshine. And Florida's famous for it. It's one of the best things about Florida. But I guess transparency is kind of like one of those funny mirrors in a fun house. Everything gets a little bit distorted by some of the people who are viewing it. I'd also like to address the idea of canceling treatment of weed control and bug control before you have a plan to take care of it. And my grandfather also had a little saying that he used to say, and that was, don't empty the water basin until you've primed the pump. And I think that what we did was we emptied that basin without priming the pump. So now we get to pay the price for it yet again. And then I'd like to just kind of wrap this up with, at some point in time, we all leave our school, we leave our job, we leave our home, we leave the office we're elected to, we leave this earth. Some of us are very fortunate and we leave behind a glorious legacy to be shared by our relatives and our children, and the rest of us leave behind a legacy also, and that is the legacy of our reputation and what we have done to earn that reputation. Please leave a wonderful legacy. Do what's right. And what's right for the 3 people here who are being asked to step down is to leave. Thank you.
Thank you. Andrea?
Hi, Andrea Ring, 407 Quarry Lane here in Sebastian. I just want to tell you my perspective on this against your citizens. To me, this is Eagle's Nest all over again. They have just switched out their sweatshirts that say "Save the Nest" to against the council members. It's the same group. And I want to tell you that during that meeting, they threatened me not to come to the microphone. And I had 3 men surround me, stopping me from getting up to talk during the meeting where we were discussing whether or not the Eagles Nest should go out for an RFP. So, do I believe that this councilwoman is being threatened? You bet I do, because they did it to me, and I'm not happy. You all need to start respecting our new council people and stop asking them to get down. I don't care how many signatures you get, they are irrelevant. Who cares? We are more for you than there are against you. So please just keep doing and stay up there. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir? Oh, ma'am? All right. From the outside, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. My name is Christopher Nolan. I live at 882 Salem Avenue. This is the first time I've been down here. The reason why I came down here originally was for the canals. I live on Salem Avenue, and the lack of maintenance is getting absolutely out of hand. The algae, the growth is coming in. The animals are just out of control, okay? I see rats running past the house. All right, I got it. But stopping is unsatisfactory. Okay, it has to be resumed right away. Now I know this has been said a few times, so I'm not going to keep reiterating everything that's already been said. I will say though, thank you for your service.
Sir, your comments have to come right here.
Okay, the fact that we have a soldier that was called a disgrace is unsatisfactory. I'm a former Marine myself, spent 11 years on Capitol Hill. That should not be allowed. All right, I'm going to keep this short. But the canals stopping anything without a course of action is not acceptable. I have a letter. I'll be sending everything over to everybody. And once again, my name is Christopher Nolan.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ma'am?
Good evening. My name is Patricia Mandel. I live in the Sebastian Highlands, been a resident here for 35 years. The city of Sebastian is in turmoil. Why? The answer is not simple but multifaceted. There's a recall movement here composed of some citizens who want to overturn the election, ousting 3 candidates who won the election fairly. This evening, I would like to address not only the members of the City Council, but more importantly, the citizens of Sebastian. I'm here to speak up for Mr. Charles Maudie, Vice Mayor of the City Council. Yes, he did go to court for holding a City Council meeting, not knowing that it had been illegally canceled by City Manager Carlisle. Mr. Carlisle did not get the consent of the City Council members before canceling the meeting, which was in direct violation of City Code per Judge Kroom's ruling. Mr. Maudie went to court and was given a slap on the wrist and a small fine. There is also an investigation of Mayor Dodd and Mr. Carlisle. They too have broken the rules of the City Charter of Sebastian. The City of Sebastian desperately needs to retain Mr. Maudie, our Vice Mayor. What Mr. Maudie wants for Sebastian is, I believe, what the majority of our citizens want. We elected him to A, control the growth of the annexation, B, protect the environment from urban sprawl, and C, keep Sebastian safe from overdevelopment and poor planning. What Mayor Dodd, Mr. Hill, and City Manager Carlisle want is not what the majority want. You can fact check me on this. Let's go back to August of last year, when many residents were on vacation out of state visiting family. That's when the former City Council of Sebastian, which Mr. Dodd and Mr. Hill were a part of, met in the dead of August to push through a botched up annexation of 1,100 acres of Graves Brothers property without a comprehensive land use plan. Definitely not in Sebastian's best interest. Even though many people spoke passionately to the City Council, asking the members to wait and do more research and make sure that annexation was in the best interest of Sebastian's residents and not in the best interest of the Graves brothers, these two people, Mr. Dodd and Mr. Hill, decided to vote for the annexation against many of our wishes. Mr. Motti, who at that time served on the Planning and Zoning Committee, was vehemently against the annexation as it stood. 3,400 units housing approximately 9,000 new residents, and please realize that 9,000 more people is more than 33% growth in our small town. Tell me, who among us wants to turn Sebastian into Port St. Lucie North? I'll tell you who, Mr. Dodd and Mr. Hill, both want that, because if they didn't, they would not have voted for it, period. I'll tell you who does not want Port St. Lucie North, Mr. Motti, and a majority of Sebastian residents. Secondly, fellow citizens, did you know that Roundup, a well-documented cancer-causing toxic chemical, was being sprayed regularly in our canals for years with the express consent of Mr. Dodd and Mr. Hill? Very hard to believe, but nonetheless true. Did you know that on day one, Mr. Motti sitting on our city council, a moratorium on toxic chemicals was initiated? The recall group has set its sights on removing the one person who has the best interest of Sebastian front and center, Mr. Charles Motti. In addition to being against the annexation and against spraying cancer-causing chemicals in our canals, he has initiated town halls for the first time. He actually wants to hear from us and welcomes input from citizenry. Remember, Mayor Dodd and Mr. Hill listened to 2+ hours of sincere arguments against the annexation, then took all of 5 minutes to vote for it anyway. I don't know about you, but that's not the kind of representation I want from my elected officials. Total and complete disregard of the people's will. Our Vice Mayor, Mr. Motti, is a man of the people, not a man for corporations like Graves Brothers, developers, or Monsanto Chemicals. Some of you are bound and determined to recall Charles Motti. I'm asking all of you to stop and reflect. I'm asking you to save Sebastian. I'm asking you to open your mind and see the writing on the wall. Mr. Motti is in our corner. He is 100% on the side of Sebastian residents.
Yeah,
he
30 seconds,
welcomes
ma'am.
personal phone calls, emails, as well as personal communication. Please get to know him, find out what he stands for. Please help him save and preserve our beautiful town. He is a person you must retain if you love Sebastian. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir, no applause, please. No applause. Sir.
Good evening. Tim Glover. I'm president of the Friends of St. Sebastian River. I just have a brief statement that I'd like to read to encourage the residents of Sebastian to participate in the city's comprehensive plan review process. City residents have a golden opportunity to say how they want Sebastian to grow and prosper. The administration is updating and revisiting its comprehensive plan between now and October. City planners are shaping ideas for a long list of city attributes: housing, transportation, sewers and water lines, green spaces, parks, schools, recreation, and more. The time is now to attend meetings of the Planning and Zoning and Natural Resources Board to voice your ideas and opinions, or go online and comment on the planners post, as planners post their draft maps and text. Comprehensive plans seem like a dry, dull subject, but they shape the big and small decisions about how the city will look, feel, and function for the next 10 to 20 years. The comprehensive plan guides growth. It helps us decide on priorities, excuse me. When it comes to spending taxpayer dollars, it guides how we protect natural resources and green spaces, especially our precious waterways and waterfronts on the St. Sebastian River and the Indian River Lagoon. So I urge everyone to pay attention, get involved, demand to be heard, learn to participate in a constructive way. It's our city and it's our future. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hello, my name is Larry Mandel. Lived in Sebastian since the 80s. Here tonight, we've seen a lot of protests around the city, a lot of angry people, kind of what's happening all over the country now. Protests all over the country, protests even right here in a little town of Sebastian. It's an American value, right? Protest, a true American value, and what our country is founded on. So that's either way, that's a good thing. I'm just wondering what the basis of the recall movement is. I'm not really sure. I haven't seen any of the petitions. I'm assuming they are have to do with the Sunshine Law, but I'm not sure. I want to go back to March 18th. There was a scheduled meeting, and that meeting actually, I guess it did take place, but it didn't because it was gavelled immediately. So the meeting didn't take place. And I think the reason was that Mayor Dodd announced a state of emergency because of the pandemic. That was the excuse that was given. But on the docket, on the agenda for that meeting was the removal of Mayor Dodd, I guess a restructuring of the city council and a shifting in responsibilities and assuming somebody else was going to be appointed mayor. But that didn't happen because the meeting was canceled. And some people are saying that that's a coup, but the city council has every right to do that. It's in the charter, I believe, isn't it? And it's in the city code and the charter, so it's a perfectly legal thing to do. I'm sure it's been done before in the history of the city. And so all meetings were suspended because of the pandemic indefinitely. And so we actually didn't have a meeting for about 2 months, I think, because this was in March, and I don't think we had a meeting until May. So that was 2 months without a city council meeting. And the Vero Beach City Council, I think, was up and running in a couple of weeks. They had their council running. The Congress, where people come from all 50 states, all over the country, they found a way to be in session. The courts were in session. A lot of institutions across the United States were back in session. But for some reason, it took 2 months for the Sebastian City Council to have a meeting. And, you know, they're talking about breaking the Sunshine Law. Oh, we didn't have sunshine for 2 months. We had darkness for 2 months, and this chamber was dark for 2 months. No light coming in, no sunshine coming in at all, right? So, after that March 18th meeting, nothing really happened. I think any council member could have called a special meeting, but maybe council members don't really know the rules that they should know, because we could have had a meeting before that, but I guess nobody took the initiative to do it. So nothing happened until April 22nd. That was the next scheduled meeting. And just before that meeting, I'm not sure how long before that meeting was supposed to happen, City Manager Carlisle canceled the meeting, which was a violation of the city code, and that was ruled by Circuit Court Judge Kroom, that he violated that code, and I don't know if he's under investigation for that or not. So then, of course, what happened after that is the big fiasco, right? When all hell broke loose, when Damien called a special meeting, which he was entitled to. A city councilor can call a special meeting. I don't know all the we know it wasn't done right? Because a lot of people are going to get in trouble because of it. But I guess if he would have called that meeting and waited a couple of days until everybody agreed on a time and place, that meeting could have been had. And at that meeting, I'm assuming that the restructuring of the city council would have taken place. Mayor Dodd would have been replaced as mayor, and from what I heard, possibly City Manager Carlisle would have been fired if it had been done right. And that's not a coup, because you're allowed to call a special meeting. It just wasn't done properly. They have the right to replace Mayor Dodd. They have the right on the charter to fire Mr. Carlisle. So all kinds of lawsuits were filed. I don't know how many. And Circuit Judge Kroom was ruling on some of them. And from the report I saw, she reprimanded and scolded Mayor Dodd for not holding any meetings. 2 months of darkness, no sunshine in our chamber. We didn't have a single meeting for 2 months. That's not a good thing, I don't think. So Mayor Dodd got scolded by the judge and ordered him to start having meetings again. Imagine that. A judge had to order our mayor to have meetings. That sounds strange to me.
You got 30 seconds, sir.
Okay, well, I only have 30 seconds. I just wanted to say a word for Councilman Marty. Anybody that wants to talk to him, he's very open, he's very accessible to talk to, spend a few minutes with, see what he's all about, see how much he loves this city, how much he cares about this city, how much knowledge he has, how much he has 40 years experience in managing, planning, developing. He knows about the ravages of overdevelopment in communities like ours. He's an asset to our city, and we really desperately need to keep him on the council.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, Council. Ben Hawker, Sebastian. I'd like to really thank everybody here for wasting 3 hours of my life bringing up subjects that are not pertaining to city business. We have a former council person who has a vendetta with one of the council members on the board, and that's not city business. That's personal. And there were threats by that party for a lawsuit. What I'm saying is, what are we really doing? We're doing nothing. We had a person come in here wheeling in petitions. Well, that was showboating. And I remember the councilwoman who was hollering at a certain party for wearing a wig coming before the council. What's happening here is I gathered nothing out of this particular meeting. A little common sense with the spraying and a few other things. But I'd like to put out a suggestion. Maybe Indian River would like to annex the city of Sebastian to save us a ton of money. We're being told that we have to put in sewers at a certain date. You'll have to excuse me shaking. I left the cane outside. And it's going to cost anywhere from $8,000 to $12,000 to put 50 feet of pipe from my septic to a sewer line. If we're with the county, we wouldn't have to pay that. The whole county would pay it. So maybe it's time to put a petition out to take the city of Sebastian and ask the county to annex our city and eliminate all of the problems we have here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We're going to now go to Zoom. Barbara, do you have someone on Zoom?
I have one person with their hand raised.
Okay. Would like to recognize them, and then they can give us their name, please.
Lisa, you should be unmuted.
Hi, this is Charles Stadelman. I live in Sebastian, Florida.
Go ahead, Charles, we hear you.
Thank you for having such a good meeting with all the input from everybody. I'm sorry I can't be there in person. It's been very lively. I just wanted to bring everybody up to date. My name is Charles Stadelman. I'm the chairperson of the Natural Resources Board. We've been trying to do the best we can since our last meeting on March 3rd, and the purpose of that meeting was to go over Sustainable Sebastian. As everybody recalls, starting back in November, the City Council approved Sustainable Sebastian by a unanimous vote. It was resolution number R2030. And just to bring everybody up to speed on what Sustainable Sebastian is, on what Mayor Dodd, the rest of the City Council has done, the Natural Resources Board is currently working on the overall reduction of single-use plastics by the City of Sebastian and its business community. Mayor Dodd had set up a workshop, a livability workshop on February 20th. In that workshop, by the direction of the City Council, we were discussing everything from livability and smart growth principles to mixed land uses, how to take advantage of compact building designs, creating a range of housing opportunities and choices, creating walkable neighborhoods. Excuse me, I'm a little out of breath. I had to come back to the phone. But mostly the workshop on March 3rd, which is, again, part of what the discussion has been this whole time. The last couple of months have been discussions on workshops and how to interface with each other a little bit better. These workshops have been ongoing since November. They're all online, they're all posted, and this is what we're doing right now. The first thing we were doing was talking about protection of natural resources, of course. The second thing we were doing was talking about protection of wetlands, which both of those incur the spraying issues and the removal of vegetation. Protect native vegetation, improve water quality and quantity, improve air quality. These are all the things we're working on currently in workshop. You have boots on the ground talking about these things. It's online. You can get the comments. Protections of shoreline and public access to shoreline. These are the things that the City Council, Mayor Dodd, even Councilman Gilliams and Councilwoman Pamela Harris has different boards working on right at this moment. This is what we're doing. When I set down my pencil, I am currently working on how to minimize soil erosion, mining and mineral excavation activities, which may include sand, sounds like it, tree protection preservation, green infrastructure and sustainability. These are all in workshops as we speak, while we're talking right now. But I don't see it on the agenda. I do see stuff about sand and the mining a little bit, but that's the only thing I see in the agenda. That was goal 1. Goal 2 in the same workshop board meeting that we discussed everything on was coastal management and resiliency. Objective 2, coastal high hazard areas, maintenance of floodplain, hurricane evacuations, post-disaster redevelopment, which had everything to do with what we're talking about right now. Establish an adoption action area overlay district. And what that means is something that we can look out for now that other people are doing in different boards. We can all do the same thing. We can all work together, which is what you were talking about. I'm talking directly to Mayor Dodd, but I'm directing the conversation to Councilwoman Pamela Harris, if you can't see me. And the continuing evaluation of conservation and coastal management element effectiveness. These are the programs we are working on currently. Everything that you talked about, and especially when you were talking about the City Council being exposed to takeover or something like that. We were specifically talking about that in the
You got Charles, you've got 30 seconds, sir.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, you got 30
Can you hear me
seconds.
now?
Yeah, you've got 30 seconds.
Oh, yes, sir.
All right.
Thank you, sir. And these were all programs that were set up by the city council, by Mayor Dodd, by, again, Councilman Gilliams, all done by unanimous vote. We're currently working on all these issues really hard with transparency and public input. As much as you guys want to put in, just get on the agenda, come to the Natural Resource Board meetings, come to the planning and zoning meetings. We invite you to do it. Just get on the agenda so we don't have to worry about Sunshine State laws. But every one of those things is an item that we are currently working on. Spraying is in there, fertilizing is in there, pesticides is in there, the ants are in there.
All right.
Every weed you can think of is in there.
Charles, thank you.
Sir.
Thank you. Your time's up.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for your service on that committee, please. Anybody else on Zoom?
Yes, we have more.
Okay.
Mr. Scott, you're unmuted. Hello?
Hello, can I talk in a bit? Can I talk later?
Yes, would you give us your name, please?
My name is David Scott, and I would like to say one thing. You are a bunch of fucking retards, guys.
Done?
All right, next person. Okay.
Well, he got to say one thing.
We will go to another one. Mr. McAllister.
Get his picture? Pre-screen these.
Hello?
Is this Mr. McAllister?
Yes.
My name is Brian. I live in 1941 Flinders Street in the great state of Tennessee. And I just wanted to comment that, these riots are just driving me insane. It's driving me insane, seriously. You must do some action now. You must kill all the niggers, kill all
Would you cut him off, please? Okay, Mr. Attorney, that's 2 for 2. Can I cut Zoom comment off?
Yeah.
5-minute break.
Wait a second. Everybody, please be quiet.
I've muted Zoom, period.
Mr. Manning, Mr. Attorney, can I cut Zoom comment off? We've had 2 for 2.
Roger that. You can move forward, sir.
All right, we're no longer going to bring Zoom comment in. Okay. Maybe the next time we have a meeting, somebody on Zoom can be reasonable and respectful when they come through the process.
If I can, Mr. Mayor, I don't have an issue with that, but if you want to get consensus from the board, that'll be great.
I'm sorry?
I don't have an issue with that based on those 2 comments. If you want to get a consensus from the board, that'll be great.
Okay, I'd like to get a consensus to the board that it's okay for me to cut off the Zoom comment.
Yes, absolutely.
Mr. Hill?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, fine. Okay, we've cut off the Zoom comment now. All right, let's go. There's no new business. City attorney matters.
I got nothing at this point, Your Honor.
All right, city manager matters.
I don't have anything tonight.
Thank you, guys. City clerk matters. Nobody has anything to now. Okay. City council matters. Vice Mayor Malte.
I have one question for the city manager. I received an email from Andrea Ring about a concern with the building department and some overhead lines. Do you have a copy of that?
I don't have a copy of it, but I've met with her several times, and that's an issue between her and Florida Power. We don't issue permits for Florida Power for them to put poles or move poles.
So
it's not a code enforcement.
that is directly Florida Power's issue?
I'm sorry?
That is directly Florida Power's issue with her, not
That's
the
correct.
city's?
That's a Florida Power light issue. They don't get permits from us, from the building department. We don't. They're their own entity. Those utility easements are there, and they're dedicated to them, so they don't have to get permission from the city to install or relocate poles.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Mr. Gilliams, I just want to say one thing before you start. I fully respect your right to bring before the council matters you'd like to bring before the council, but I would like you to please consider the fact that you have to be a little bit more respectful and charging people with criminal activity, if you would do that for us. So,
Mr. Mayor, if I can, just before we start.
Yes.
This is the city attorney. Oh, I'm sorry.
I would respectfully request that Mr. Gilliam not discuss this issue as he has in the past. And my guess is his intent.
Would you please?
Well, it's a point of order. It's
give me-
my turn to speak. He had his chance.
Look, I am trying to protect the citizens of Sebastian from being in a lawsuit that may cost us millions of dollars.
Okay.
This lawsuit may cost us everything we have in reserves because Mr. William feels that these
Point of order,
baseless
Mr. Mayor.
allegations that he's spreading
Mr.
for
Mayor,
years.
point of order.
Councilmember Gilliams, hold on a
You're
second.
going to get control of this meeting?
Councilmember Hill.
You're going to get control of this meeting, Mr. Mayor?
I would request that you
This is my matters. He's speaking under my matters.
Councilmember Hill.
Not allow this
He is out of
discussion to happen.
control.
Councilmember Hill, are you raising a point of order?
No.
Councilmember
sir.
Hill, are you raising a point of order?
Yes, sir, I am.
And your point of order is?
My point of order is that the legal discussion that Mr. Gilliams has had over the last several months, while being asked by the people he's been accusing of illegal activity, after these people have been exonerated by all law enforcement agencies, needs to cease and desist, because we as council members must protect the citizens of this community. This has already been vetted by all law enforcement, and it must cease. Because if we do not, and if we sanction this as a city, Mayor Dodd, then we may be implicit in allowing these individuals to sue this community. And I will not stand by and allow Mr. Gilliams to cost this community millions of dollars.
Okay. Mr. Annan, do you have a comment on Councilmember Hill's point of order?
Well, my comment was just, I would like to place a comment I would like to make a comment before, just for the record. I'm not referring to the point of order, but if I can discuss the item. I understand what Councilmember Hill was talking about. I just would like to state something for the record. Maybe we'll just appease everyone and try to move forward.
Okay, go ahead and state that for him, please.
Okay, just for the record, item 17B is an item under Councilmember Damian Gilliam's matters. I want to make that clear. It does not reflect the consensus of the board. That being said, I actually agree with a public comment earlier. I don't see the public purpose. However, I have no issues with Mr. Gilliam discussing his matter. However, I will caution him and I would admonish him and any other members of this board from making any defamatory comments, including but not limiting to the accusation that a crime was committed by someone or implicate someone in any fashion, somehow that a criminal activity which has not been proven. And in fact, a lot has been stated about this FDLE report. It is in the actual records as well. It's dated 6/13/19, and it clearly states as well that there is sufficient evidence, that there is not sufficient evidence to support any criminal investigation. Therefore, what I'm going to ask you, Mr. Mayor, what you've done is just at this point recommend that the mayor does control the meeting by the gavel accordingly. And if in the future a point of order might come up, just let me address that point of order. And since I wrote this out today, based on council being here today, I will probably write this out and make it a part of the official record. Okay. I just want to say that for the record.
All right. So based on Councilmember Hill's point of order and the attorney making his statement part of the official record, I'm gonna overrule Councilmember Hill's point of order. I'm going to rule against him and because the attorney stated that Councilmember Gilliams does have the right to bring this up. I agree 100% with Councilmember Hill, but from a procedural point of view, I can't rule against bringing this up. But I will caution Mr. Gilliams and admonish him. Twice in the past, you've been admonished by this chair, once by the city attorney, to not make unjustified criminal accusations. And if you do it again, I'm going to put that admonishment in writing and have it made part of the record.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
So you now can move forward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just for the record, I am only stating facts that are in the record, that are here in the clerk's office. Everything I'm presenting is already of record. I am not making criminal allegations. Let me make that very clear. I'm going to just lay out the facts and tell the and show the council what their rights are as elected officials of this community.
Okay.
I have no intentions of humiliating anybody or making any false allegations. So may I proceed, Mr. Mayor?
You may proceed. I just want you to understand that I'm going to play the judge on whether you're making illegal criminal activities, and I'm going to stop you if you do.
And Mr. Mayor, if I can, City Attorney,
Yes.
Councilmember Gilliam is setting up, there's been reference to that prior city attorney. That was not me. That was back on 2/12/2020. That was under Jim Stokes.
Yes, it was. Now, I have a question. You may be taking care of this. Can the Zoom people see his presentation? Okay. So if you're watching on Zoom, you should be able to see the material that's being presented on the overhead. That's where it goes. It won't come down on your head.
Testing, can you hear me, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, I can hear you.
Could everybody hear me?
I believe so.
Thank you. First of all, I'm going to make an opening statement, and then I'm going to ask the IT individual to play back the video of May 22nd, 2013. And I just want to refresh everybody's memory in the community what transpired that evening when Al Minna made the presentation of why we should purchase an extension of 1.4 acres to our cemetery. And I want to remind the council that under the charter, page 8 of 20, section 2.11, under investigations, the city council may make investigations into the affairs of the city and the conduct of any city department, office, or agency, and for this purpose may subpoena, witness, administer oaths, take testimony, and require the production of evidence. This council has a lot of power. If we cannot get our local authorities to look into matters, then we as a council have to police ourselves.
Okay, can I interrupt you for 1 second?
No, sir.
No. By stating that, are you saying that your presentation tonight is a request that the city council do an investigation?
Not at this time yet. I want to present the evidence, and
So
then
you're saying you've done the investigation?
No, I'm going to present the facts that are on the record at the clerk's office. That's what I'm going to do.
Okay. And you're not asking the council to
Mr. Mayor,
decide
I don't
on
want to
an
get ahead of
investigation?
myself. Can you stop interrupting me, please?
No, I choose to run the meeting the way I choose to run it, and you brought this up. Are you asking the council to make a decision on an investigation?
I'm not asking anything at this time. I'm just telling the council what their rights are under the charter and under where the people, the public can look.
Thank you. Go ahead.
So, before we get started, I want to make sure I got this on correctly. Okay. There it goes right there, under investigations, 2.11. That's what I just read, Mr. Mayor, just for the record, okay? I just want the public to understand it's full transparency here. We're just going to give the facts.
All I want you to understand is that you're not the council, and you're a council member, and you cannot do an investigation without the whole council.
I understand that, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
Please, don't put words in my mouth.
I just want to make sure that you're clear.
Okay, so, now that the community knows that, I'm going to go ahead. Can we proceed with the videotape of May 22nd, 2013, Al Minna's presentation?
On to unfinished business. The purchase of 12,900 US Highway 1, the cemetery expansion purchase. Mr. Minner.
Thank you, members of council. At the last meeting, we provisionally looked at the concept of expanding the cemetery to the address of 12,900 US 1, which is a 1.4 acre parcel immediately north of the cemetery. This site was brought to our attention by John King as the owners there were in the position to sell it. We examined this on a few levels, but felt like to secure the price at $300,000 with an appraised value of $375,000, we wanted to work quickly to be able to secure that so we wouldn't have any bidding issues and allow a brief period for us to do some due diligence. So between now...
So, Mr. Minner is making it very clear that the City of Sebastian is getting ready to put a contract in for $300,000 based on an appraisal for $375,000 through King Realty, which, by the way, Jane King also worked at the Community Development Department at that time. Just for the record. So let me proceed.
Once again, I'm going to ask you to quit making those kind of comments. What you're doing is you're inferring that there was something underhanded by this.
Not referring anything. That's a fact. So
Okay.
let me proceed.
All right.
So the appraisal, I have it in the file here. I will show it at the end of the tape. The offer was for $300,000. The appraisal was for $375,000. All right, if you can proceed.
And the last meeting, we went back and we looked at about 5 issues that we wanted to bring to your attention. And at the end of this presentation, our recommendation is that you go ahead and authorize me to complete the sale and to purchase this parcel for $300,000. Briefly, I will go into the due diligence items that we examined for your input as well as the public's. I briefly provided some details on them in the packets, but I'll expand on that a little bit tonight. First and foremost, I think cemetery sales is obviously the first thing we need to look at. And we wanted to take a little more time. I worked with Sally to put some of these numbers together. And just for public information too, Sally and I worked together a little bit on the cemetery issues. So our missions kind of blend there. Sally's in charge of sales and records and keeping track of what's sold and where folks are interned. And on my side of the house, I'm in charge of the operation and the maintenance and the personnel who do those other issues with Sally. So we both kind of keep an eye on the cemetery. So we looked together at where we thought our future needs were. And the number that we came up with was, we thought right now there was about 1,000 lots remaining in the cemetery. That's not a huge number. As we reported last meeting, we thought that was about 15 years. We recrunched that number and came up with a little bit different answer, 17.2 years. So having said that, when that time frame comes, it is my opinion that in about 5 to 7 to 10 years, you will be in a situation where you will need to examine 2 things. Essentially, one, do you want to move on with providing cemetery service to the community of Sebastian? Or B, do we want to close cemetery service? And then in that case, the answer would become, we just need to continue to maintain. And we have our trust funds set up in the situation so that if we decide not to expand the cemetery, you can do that. Our recommendation, however, is that you do expand, because we do believe that you have the funds available. And if we are going to expand cemetery services and keep that as a future service, we do believe that we have the population growth to support a cemetery expansion, and the price, frankly, is right. The numbers will do nothing but go back up. That's demonstrated in the appraised value. That's demonstrated in the market. And essentially all the reports that we get back now from the market with the residential side and the commercial side is, while sales aren't anywhere close to where they were at the boom, they are showing signs of picking up, and it seems to, all signs seem to indicate that we are leaving the bottom. So that's a good thing. So now is really the time to purchase. So I think if we would wait on this parcel, I think 2 things would happen. Ultimately, A, you would look at a significantly higher price in the next few years, or B, we'd look at that parcel being bought out from us at maybe a slightly higher rate. But if the parcel is bought out from us, that does take away expansion potential for us, which brings us back to not giving you the opportunity to examine whether or not you want to move forward. Having said that, before I belabor the point on cemetery sales, we did take some opportunity to go back and crunch numbers and come up with different concepts that we could do or may want to consider, and we certainly have enough time to do that in the future. So I looked at two extreme case scenarios. One was, if you take that 1.4 acres, it is on a hill, and you divide out the areas where we can't use those areas because of the hill. I would say about 2/3 of that property is unusable for lots. We'll come back to that idea. And in that case, we examine that. We think that if you just use the flat areas of that, less roads and walkways and those type of things, we think that you could get about 760 lots from that 1.4 acres. At our current sales, based on local sales, city sales only, remember we sell niches for $2,000, and it's 2 and 4s niches, and cemetery lots are 1 and 2. That's an in-city, out-of-city rate. We did our calculations based on just city sales, which is about 70% of our sales. Sally didn't correct me, so my numbers look about right. That would be a revenue stream of $760,000, which would recoup our funds of $300,000 in a worst-case scenario. So that would be the smallest amount of return on our investment that we could get back. A larger investment scale would be to do 3 type of internments. One would be cemetery lots, one could be cemetery niches, and one could be the mausoleum. And the mausoleums, for those that aren't familiar, would be, it's essentially an internment in a casket that's in a mausoleum. So instead of a cremation where the remains go into a niche, or a burial lot, we divide those and do that a little bit differently as well. There would be a mausoleum type sale. We do think that there would be significant revenues for that. We have had some requests about it. It does seem to be a popular way to intern loved ones, and we think that the cost for such a project would probably be somewhere in the $500,000 range, but sales could be somewhere for an individual mausoleum spot could range anywhere between $400 and $7,500 per spot. And based on what we think we have on just some provisional homework that we did, we think that there could be opportunity to build a mausoleum into the side of that bank, which would open up that parcel to do lots on top, a mausoleum in the bank, more lots and niches on the bottom. In that case, we think that we could squeeze in a mausoleum, which we roughly would be about 15 feet wide by 175 feet long, and at 6 levels would provide a total of 264 mausoleum spots. So and at the lowercase number, that could be a total revenue of about $1,056,000. Again, all these things are very rough, and then when you mix that with less lot sales and some niche sales, there could be a maximum potential there of about $2.5 million in new revenue. And then based on the trust fund, how that splits, that could generate about $1.2 million for the perpetual fund, and about $1.2 million after we pay ourselves will come back into that for other ways. So long story short here, and I'll wind up on this due diligence, is this purchase it's safe financially. I'll talk about what's not safe about it here in a minute, but it does have potential to return our investment. It is a competitive price, and it really opens us up to a lot of different things. Second, we wanted to talk about the ridge. If another opportunity there would be to get rid of the ridge, which would be to dig up the sand hill that's there, sell the sand. There is value in that sand. We don't know how much is there, but we think that probably the value of that could be another way to start recouping some of those funds. It is significant. If we did that and you calculate just the amount of property there, the lots go from about 720 to a little over 800. So that opens up additional space for us. Again, the sand is not an issue. It actually provides other opportunities for us. Lastly, or 2 more issues here. On annexation, the parcel right now is not in the city limits. So should you buy this, we would recommend that you annex this parcel and then rezone it to public service. We don't believe that that's going to be any issue with the county or anything else. And then the structure, there is a dilapidated structure on the property. There's some overgrown brush and those type of things that does need to be removed. Now, lastly, to purchase it, we do need to talk about a little bit of a financial maneuver that I've talked with Bob about, Bob Ginsberg, and that is the Cemetery Trust Fund. Right now, the Cemetery Trust Fund's balance is about $975,000, so it's just short of $1 million. Under Ordinance 09312, we've established policies that dictate how our cemetery sales those revenues go. And all of those monies, when we sell a niche or a cemetery, whether it's to a local or a non-local person, those monies go immediately to the trust. And the trust is divided into 2 sections, a spendable trust and a non-spendable trust. The non-spendable trust is set in perpetuity so that the interest on those monies generates operation and maintenance monies for the future when there is a time where you don't have expansion. And then the spendable trust has to go into issues of expansion, capital improvement, and these type of things. Our balance in those funds is $763,382 on the non-spendable trust and $273,993 on the spendable trust. So essentially, we're about $25,000 short to purchase this property out of the spendable trust. We do recommend that you move forward with this. We do understand that the trust has been set up to save money in perpetuity. However, we see a little wiggle room there. So we have recommended that if you move forward with this project, you pass Resolution R13-10. What that resolution states is essentially we're going to follow the rules, but we're going to suspend them for the indefinite period so that we can borrow $26,000, I believe the number was $26,003, to be exact, $26,007 from the non-spendable portion so that we can make the purchase and fill the gap on the $300,000. And in the interim, we would put all cemetery sales back into the non-spendable trust until we replenish that fund. At our current rate, we think that that will be done sometime at the beginning of the fiscal year or later into the fall, winter, the fall 2013, winter 2014. So we think that within the next 6 to 9 months, those monies will be back, and then the non-spendable portion, or the spendable portion, then can start recouping. At the end of this presentation, now so I will pass this to council for your judgment, and we recommend that you approve Resolution R13-10 and authorize myself to close the purchase of the 12,900 US 1 Highway 1 property within the provisions of the sale contract, which you reviewed at the last meeting and which is in your packets this evening.
Mr. Mayor, so moved.
Yes, let me read the title. This is Resolution Number R1304. Resolution of the City of Sebastian, Indian River County, Florida, borrowing funds from the non-expendable cemetery trust fund and repaying the funds with all the niche and lot sales, providing for conflict, providing for an effective date.
It's
Just a question.
R13-10, actually.
Okay, go ahead, Jim. You
That's
have the same question.
Resolution R-13-10, not 4.
I'm sorry.
It shows 4 on page 40.
You're right.
So are
I
we
read it from
talking about 4 or 10?
It's 10.
Well, here.
4 is earlier. 4 was the support for MPO. So that's a mistake.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Yep, I wrote the resolution there. I got the numbers mixed up. It's right in the transmittal. It
is
correct.
10. Okay, so
10.
we correct.
R13-10.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that.
No, I think actually 4 came from, that's the ordinance number on the franchise. Oh, did you? Oh.
Same thing. Move approval of R-13-10.
Second.
All right. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak on this? Any further discussion from council?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Mr. Adams.
Just a quick question here regarding the ridge, the sand that's on the property.
Let's pay attention now.
What exactly, or briefly, what's involved in removing the sand and selling the sand, and would the revenue generated from that go to the cemetery fund or the general fund?
It should go. I smile and jest because I would love to pirate it and bring it to the general fund. Where it needs to go is if we do ultimately decide to sell that sand, it needs to stay in the cemetery fund. We don't know how much that would generate. We anticipate that it could be 6 figures. I don't think it would be much more than that. It does have value. We don't have a plan laid out for you on if we did decide to sell that, how we would go about doing that. We did think that, we noted it though, however, as a potential option. The essential bottom line here is we've got a lot of options with making this purchase, whether we sell the sand, whether we keep the sand, whether we go lots, whether we go niches, whether we go mausoleums. The price is extremely competitive. That price is going to do nothing but go up, and making this purchase really, and I think I put those numbers in the in my report, which I didn't verbally say, essentially this takes us from a potentially about 15 to 17 years of useful sales life at the cemetery to just under around 40 years, depending how we break this up with niche sales or lot sales and different. There's so many variables. I didn't think it was worth getting into, but at the end of the day, when we took a look at it, there's a multitude of areas for that price and the affordability and the time now that we've bought ourselves with that amount of money, which we think the trust can certainly hold. It was good value.
Just a quick comment.
Yes, ma'am.
Praise for the city of Sebastian. Did you see I think it was today's paper, Vero Beach Trust Fund is getting a little short, and they may not continue their cemetery services, and ours is extraordinarily healthy. So kudos to whoever set this up and kept it going the way it's supposed to do, because we're in very good shape. And I just happened to read that, and I say, oh my.
Well, we'd like to see interest earnings go up a little bit, so, but I agree with you. It is in good shape. The other issue, we probably have about 3 capital issues that are before us. One is this one, is if we want to do purchasing, so this purchasing really knocks that issue out and probably solves it in perpetuity for the city of Sebastian, because there probably will be no municipal cemetery area for us if we stay in the business after the next 30 to 50 years. So I think that's a good thing. The other issues that we do have out there, probably some road issues with moving some roads around, adding some roads for access and those type of things, and then some irrigation expansion. So we do think it's in a good spot, and as long as we can keep the perpetual fund, non-spendable fund up, and if we can get decent interest earnings like we had in the past, there'll be some money there to help offset the maintenance costs that we'll have in perpetuity.
A couple more.
Thank you.
I
Yes,
have
sir.
a couple more, sorry. If the sand were to be sold, the revenue from that, would that go to the expendable or the non-expendable trust?
At that phase, I think it would be up to you all, and we'd come back to you with a recommendation. My knee-jerk reaction is to say to keep it in the cemetery and to put it in the capital.
Okay.
Can I? I'm sorry. When you're done, I'd like to make a comment about something that is in the ordinance.
Okay.
Sell the sand and
Just
put it in the
also
capital
wondering,
account. Sell the
since we
sand
have to
and put
be
it in the
borrowing
capital account.
that
Let me just finish.
26,000 from the
Are we listening to this, or
the
you?
non-expendable fund. Just wondering if we should look at possibly amending the ordinance to increase the amount that we keep in the expendable fund, so that whenever down the line, if we find ourselves in this position again, we wouldn't have to be looking to borrow the money.
If I could respond to that, I don't think you want to change the ordinance to keep a minimum in the capital fund. In fact, I would go the other way. I would reduce the amount that you need to keep in the perpetual fund so that you have more capital based on interest rates and those type of things. But at this stage, I think that's premature. And when we came to you on May 8th, we thought we were going to be recommending a change in the ordinance on how we manage the funds. But after we reviewed some cash flow, we thought that the bridge of the resolution was the best thing. So at this time frame, we wouldn't say to modify the ordinance in terms of how you manage the cemetery trust.
Okay.
Any other questions, Mr.
No,
Adams?
that's all. Thank you.
Any other, council? All right.
Oh, Sally had a comment on the ordinance.
Yes, Sally.
I just have a question, because I'm very familiar with this ordinance. I actually wrote it in 1993, and it was amended in, I think, 2006 by Mark Mason, having to do with the trust fund. And we looked at it the other day after the agenda packet was brought to us to put together, and Kip and I had a discussion about this. And if you read the trust fund language, it just says the proceeds from the sale of internment sites in the cemetery shall be deposited to the trust fund, 1/2 and then 1/2. It doesn't say anything about sand.
Right, and that's why that was my comment. That's why if we sell sand, I think that the proper home for that is the cemetery trust fund. Which fund you put it in, spendable spendable, non-spendable, I think it's going to be up to you. That's why my knee-jerk reaction would be to put it back into the capital side, so that if you sell the sand, then you have immediate money to purchase more niches, maybe offset if we want to go the mausoleum route, or if we want to build different roads or bisectors or do things of improvement, then that sales from the sand money would be there, because at this stage, it's my opinion that the non-spendable trust is at a reasonable level.
Thank you. All right, we have a motion and a second. Ms. Mayo, roll call, please.
Mr. Hill.
Yes.
Mayor McPartlin.
Yes.
Mr. Wright.
Yes.
Mr. Adams.
Yes.
Ms. Coy.
Yes.
All right. Brings us up to public input. Is there anyone from?
Okay, so that was May 22nd. On May 8th, from the minutes of the meeting, I'm going to put this right here, just to reflect, so that everybody, if we can, okay. Just to show that Mrs. Coy, Jim Hill, and Mr. McPartlin proceeded in that vote to proceed to make the purchase. Then, this was this meeting here, May 22nd, 2013, and Al Minner, in his transmittal, we just move that there, indicates the appraised value for $375,000, and that this here, in his transmittal, understand, this is important, with the existence of the sugar sand ridge in the parcel, the city could consider removal and sale of the sand. This will create more space for lot sales, and the sand sales could equal the value of the property. The value of the property is appraised at $375,000. We're purchasing it for $300,000. Let's not forget that. That's a very important document. Just so everybody knows, staff had indicated, and they made that remark, they made that statement. That's of record. So, let me proceed. Also,
Mayor Dodd, I have a question for,
excuse me.
You have a point of order, Councilmember Hill?
Yes, sir.
Proceed, please.
My point of order would be a question to Mr. Gilliam as to whether or not the resolution that was passed had anything about the sale of the sand in it.
The resolution itself, you're talking about resolution 13-10?
Yes.
Yeah. And I've read it. It does not. I'll answer that question for Councilmember Gilliam.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I'm looking at Resolution 13-10, and that's in reference to borrowing funds. That's all that's about. So let me proceed. Then also on May 22nd, Mr. Adams asked that the sand would to be sold would go to the non-expendable, and you saw that in the tape. Then there was the roll call. Mr. Hill, Mr. McPartlin, Mrs. Coy, the ones that they knew exactly firsthand back in 2013 what was to transpire. Then
point of order, Mr.
now,
Mayor?
excuse me.
Yes, sir. You have a point of order?
Yes, I would ask Mr. Gilliams what exactly he is suggesting that was to transpire.
You have a response to that, sir?
It's self-explanatory. If Jim has a problem with that, let him go back to the videotape.
Okay.
I want to proceed. It said it.
All right,
Staff already said what their intentions were.
All right, I'm going to rule in favor of his point of order, so you have to answer that question. What is it that you expected to transpire? You made a statement that they expected to transpire.
Well,
what is it?
I'm going to appeal your point of order, and I'm going to ask the council if we can proceed.
Okay, so you're appealing the point of order.
I'm going to appeal your point of order, and
All
I'm
right,
going to ask the
Councilmember
council if
Gilliams
we
is
can
appealing my
proceed so
ruling.
we can move forward.
Let me finish. Let's get just one person at a time. You've got your TV guy in here recording it, so make sure he gets it right. Councilmember Gilliams is appealing my ruling on the point of order. Councilmember Hill's point of order was a question in response to Councilmember Gilliams asking him to define what he means by expected to transpire. And I ruled in favor of Councilmember Hill. If you vote yes on this, that means you support my ruling. If you vote no, that means you do not support my ruling. I'll have a roll call. We'll pretend that Councilmember Gilliams is at the dais. Would you like to vote, sir?
No.
Councilmember Paris.
No, I'd like to see it proceeded so I understand it.
Vice Mayor Malte. Yes. Councilmember Hill.
Yes, sir.
And I vote yes. So you have to respond to their question.
Okay, so in reference to the city code, any surplus property that the city owns and purchased must be appraised under your code. I will get to that document to show you that the property was not appraised, so we don't have an actual value of it, and it was not handled according to the protocol of the city.
Okay, so you're saying the vote that they made, just a second, Councilmember Hill. Your response is that the vote that they made on the 22nd of May 2013, that when you said what they knew what was going to transpire, you're saying they knew it was not going to be properly
No, don't put words
disposed
in
of?
my mouth. Let me explain to you again, and I'll try to go real slow.
Yeah, make it look like I'm a third grader. I like that.
So, it's been established that that would be surplus property if we're to purchase the property. Under surplus property guidelines and protocol and procedures under the City of Sebastian, you have to go ahead, which is section 2.93.
Point of order, Mayor Dodd.
Wait,
Excuse me.
Councilmember Hill, let him finish his response.
Under the administration code, section 2.93, sale, exchange, or abandonment of city property, personal property. So, if upon recommendation of respective department heads, the city manager has determined that personal property owned by the city is no longer needed or is obsolete, the property may be sold, bid, or at auction. Notice of the sale shall be published once in the newspaper and general circulation to the city. City manager shall establish a price, determine the sale by auction. However, if depreciated value of personal property is in excess of $4,000, approval of the city council is required prior to sale.
Let me interrupt you again, because I'm trying to go back. When you said they knew what the action was, are you saying that their vote in 2013 established surplus property?
I've already made my point.
Are you saying that it established surplus property?
I've already made my point. It's self-evident.
Actually, you haven't made your point. You've made an accusation, which we've asked you not to do, but you haven't made your point.
Under the debate, under that motion that evening, the intent was to sell that property. It had value of over appraised value, $300,000 to $375,000.
For $300,000.
I'm going to leave it at that, Mr. Mayor. Can I proceed?
And I have to draw a line between accusation and non-accusation.
This is fact.
And then I'm not seeing a fact here. I'm not seeing a fact here, and I need to draw a line between accusation and no accusation.
Not an accusation, sir.
So once again, you've made an accusation against 3 prior council members.
No, I did not.
Yes, you did.
Okay.
I'm going to let it go at that. Councilmember Hill, we've solved that point of order.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can I proceed?
Yes, you may.
Thank you. So, just so everybody can see that, there we go. Personal property. Sale, exchange, abandonment of city property. Those are the procedures that staff should follow when we have police cars, tractor trailers, heavy equipment. It's personal property, and there's a certain protocol that you must follow. Under the Finance Division, Department, Director of Finance powers and duties, supervising collection of all monies. It's in the code. Section 2.106. Here is the appraisal done by Peter Armfield and Wagner. There's the appraised value, $375,000. Oh, and by the way, let the record reflect, Mr. Mayor, excuse me, I'm speaking.
Point of order, Mayor Dodd.
Yes, sir. Councilmember Hill, you have a point of order.
Mr. Gilliams has stated that the appraised value was $375. Could you explain what the appraised value was on?
Okay. For Mr. Hill, appraisal number 41907, the estate of Paul Rallis.
That was the value of the property.
Would he like the legal description on what it's for?
Yes, sir. It was the value of the property, was it not?
Of course.
Yeah, it was the value of the property.
Yeah.
Yes. There's nothing, I've read that appraisal, there's nothing in there about sand.
No, correct. That's not what I'm saying. My point of reference was, the city manager said the sand has a value of hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Let me clear up the point of order, please. Sir, let me clear up the point of order. It's just a mechanical thing I have to do. Okay, Councilmember Hill's point of order was a question about what that meant. It was answered, so I'm comfortable that we can go forward without that. Are you comfortable with that, Mr. Hill? Councilmember Hill?
Yes, sir, thank you.
Thank you. All right, now, go
Can I
ahead.
proceed?
Yeah.
So, city staff goes ahead and purchases this property back in 2013. Fast forward to 2018. Then, at the time, there was an assistant airport director, assistant city manager to Mr. Minna, Joe Griffin. He then stepped in back when Mr. Minna left, and he ran the city of Sebastian as the city manager. So, Mr. City Manager at that time, Joe Griffin, was getting ready to retire and felt, instead of waiting for the 15 to 17 years of the absorption rate of the existing cemetery to take place, he was going to proceed with a major project on the way out. And I'll show you the dates. Because Mr. City Manager Paul came in on May 9th, 2018. And this project was moving along the beginning of January, February, March through growth management and through the building department. And it was moving along by not following protocol city guidelines for site plans and site special use permits. Because when you proceed to go ahead and take a piece of property and develop it, which the city had full intentions of doing, because here's the engineering plans right here for the community to see. It's incomplete. I'm not going to mention the company that did it, but it's not signed. Does not show landscaping, does not show retention, does not show parking. It was a middle-of-the-night drawing, from what I can see, never completed. However, our staff went ahead and proceeded with doing an environmental study on that property. And when you develop a piece of property in the city of Sebastian, you must...
Yes.
I would like to know who made that report or who drew that map.
That was MBV Engineering.
It's right there, Jimmy.
It's on the map.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. And they're a good engineering firm, by the way. But this was incomplete. And I understand why. Because this was a quick deal where we needed to proceed before City Manager Joe Griffin was leaving. And if you look at the permit, well, let's talk about the environmental review, because I thought it was interesting that when staff, Kim and Lisa Frazier, did the city's environmental review, instead of hiring for a phase 1 study, which, if you go to the Sebastian Property Owners Association candidates night, let me explain. Linda Kitchen made the remark there was toxic waste and oil on that property.
Okay, that's hearsay.
No, it's not
Don't bring
hearsay,
that in here.
sir.
That's hearsay.
I'm going to give you the date. Go to the Facebook page of Sebastian Property
Linda
Owners
Kitchens is not an
Association.
environmental engineer, and that's absolute hearsay.
Okay, I'm going to show you the pictures.
Doesn't matter.
That's not going to be hearsay. Give me a minute.
I
Let
know.
me show you the
They
pictures,
found
okay?
they found
I'm gonna show
a
you the
body up
pictures.
there. They found a bunch of stuff.
Here's the pictures,
Yeah.
so everybody can see the barrels. Okay? So that should have raised the red flag right off the top that we have an environmental problem there. They indicated there was scrub jays and tortoise turtles as well. That should have threw up a red flag. First of all, the city should have went ahead and got a phase 1 study to see for contamination, which we did not do as a city. And then we proceeded with an incomplete report and was never reported to the Department of Environmental Protection as well. So let the record reflect that we are now, as a city, telling the community, we tell everybody else that you must proceed with a site plan procedure, spend thousands and thousands of dollars on an engineering site plan, but the city does not follow its own protocol and procedures.
One more
Let me
defamation.
move forward.
That's one more defamation you've done.
That's not defamation, that's a fact.
It is not.
Okay, well,
Okay.
I'm going to go ahead and show you the permit that was issued. So, and I'm going to be careful not to include the contractors, because this is not about the contractors. This is about staff. This is about our people here at City Hall taking advantage and doing things that are not proper to protocol. So, let me go ahead and tell you what, right here, temporary special use permit, because I went for one of these, by the way. I'm very familiar with it. That there is a criteria. Planning and Zoning Commission is involved, the City Council is involved. When you do sand mining, which we did because the permit and the request from the contractor was for 18 months. If you're doing a land clearing of 1.4 acres, you can do that in 10 to 20 days. As a developer, I can testify to that. Criteria for review, notwithstanding any provisions of this article, the City Council may, in its sole discretion, grant a special use permit in any district for the use which is not provided for in the zoning regulations. All such uses shall not be otherwise illegal, shall not be specifically prohibited pursuant to the comprehensive plan or other applicable law and regulations, and shall satisfy the following findings of fact by the City Council. Now, keep in mind, we're doing an annexation and a zoning at the same time, because I have those documents here to show the community that we should have been crossing our T's and dotting our I's. Procedures for review. And I've got this highlighted for everybody to see that we failed by not making 7 copies of the application, which it should have been the city, and staff did not review it. The Planning and Growth Management Director, you could see through the emails, and I'm not going to go into the emails. That's why I'm going to, at the end, I'd like to talk about an investigation to get all the facts. But staff did not do a total, complete review. Recommendations to Planning and Zoning never happened. The recommendation to the Planning and Zoning Commission never happened. The property owners to the rear of the property were never contacted. And there was never a public hearing. To me, that is strictly against and prohibited against our city codes and ordinances. And I will share with the community exactly how they went about proceeding. And some of these staff members were a little concerned. You could see that in their emails, how quickly it was moving. So on the permit,
Point of order, Mayor Dodd.
Yes, sir.
I know this is getting annoying to the public, but I would like to see those emails that he's describing.
Are you talking about the ones in the agenda packet? Councilmember Gilliams.
Well, you said that some of the staff were annoyed at the speed of this process. I'd like to see those emails.
Okay. Have you got those? Councilmember Gilliams?
yeah, when I'm ready to present that, I'm not there yet.
I'm going to rule in favor of Councilmember Hill's point of order.
I'm going to appeal to the board. I'm still going through a procedure
Okay,
to lay this out.
you would like to do that?
Yeah, so
I've ruled in favor of Councilmember Hill's. He did make the statement. I ruled in favor of Councilmember Hill's point of order. So a vote yes stipulates that Councilmember Hill's point of order is valid. No. Councilmember Gilliams, your vote. No. Councilmember Ferris.
I think he should proceed.
So your answer is yes or no? You're
no.
voting no. Vice Mayor Malte.
Oh, yes, let's see the emails.
Councilmember Hill.
Yes.
Your vote yes? I vote yes. Could you please show those emails?
Sure. I was hoping you would ask.
Good.
Okay. I was trying to simplify this, but I'd be happy to share all the emails. This is going to take an hour. So you just sit tight, Mr. Mayor.
How about the emails?
Excuse me?
Wait, the point of order was to emails that show where the staff was concerned. So don't show me any emails that don't indicate concern on the part of the staff.
January 31st, 2018. I'm going to read it. This is from Scott Baker. Expansion of cemetery property, clearing of. Good morning, Lisa. Understand you desire to hold off the clearing of property north of existing cemetery grounds until the grounds are needed. I would like to proceed with the clearing and level for reasons. The offer from blank, because I don't want to mention any names, to clear the property for free in exchange for keeping the sand is a good deal for the city. I cannot say how long this offer will last. The alternative is to pay $27,000 from the other bidder for clearing. The clearing process is expected to take months to establish. The cemetery plans to install a comprehensive modern irrigation system. it would be a smart idea to include the northern expansion property in this plan.
And that shows he's concerned?
Wait, I'm going to get to it.
It sounds to me like it shows he wants to do it.
Let me lead up to it.
Okay.
Scott Baker, February
I would ask
7th.
that they be read in total.
Lisa, check in to see how your department is coming in along. For today, I observed the clearing company hauling...
Read them in total.
I'm sorry, Councilmember Hill, I didn't hear that.
If he's going to read the emails, he needs to read them in total. If he's going to make these accusations, he needs to read the emails in total. He wants to give...
I agree with that. I agree with that. So, and I'm once again, the question was emails that support concern on the part of the staff.
So, Monday, February 12th. This is from Scott Baker to Bob. There's a section of property north of the cemetery that the city owns for expansion of the cemetery. We are about to be granted a clearing permit whereby the trucking will haul away the sand and level the property. Before we can do that, there's some cleanup that needs to be done. That's the toxic waste. See attached pictures. Will you please get with Kip and coordinate the time and day when the parks people can come in to haul away the man-made trash and things that don't belong, mostly plastic containers, and that's where the toxic stuff was in those containers.
Well, he doesn't say that, but that's your supposition,
yeah,
but that's a concern.
Okay, so, listen, Mr. Mayor, I'm trying to just get some of the facts out so we can get an investigation.
No, you've got to respond to this point of order, or I'm going to close you down.
I understand, but a thorough investigation will reflect
You
everything
can't make
to the
statements
community.
of fact and not back them up. You said the staff was concerned. Show me some facts that say the staff was concerned.
February 13th, from Scott Baker again to Timothy Clark. Alan, before we turn over clearing and leveling of the Sand Hill Cemetery property to the truck, and the city needs to pick up a bunch of garbage that is strewed across the top of the hill. See Bob for pictures. The trash debris is too much to be picked up by hand. We need to get a bucket loader up there. Bob thinks traction is going to be a problem. Lots of sugar sand. Please take a moment to run out there to see if you have any thoughts on how to get the mechanical equipment up the hill. If the Egyptians can do the impossible, we should be able to find a way. So they're pushing. They're pushing along here.
That doesn't show concern, though.
Okay, well, everybody's entitled to their opinion, so.
Yeah, I know.
There's the toxic waste.
And you know for sure that was classified. Someone tested it. You have an engineering. Councilmember Gilliams, do you have an engineering report on that to show it was toxic?
No, I have a witness that's said it.
Who said that?
Linda Kitchen at
Linda
the
Kitchens
Sebastian
is not
Property
an
Owners.
engineer.
Okay. Let me proceed. Do you think that commercial property for $375,000, they're going to give it away for $300 without a reason? They couldn't sell it. It had a red flag on it. You have to do an environmental study. It's called a phase one.
Do you have proof of the red flag that was on it?
Let me proceed. There's
It's
more.
just, just you're not, I'd like to know what you're trying to prove.
I'm trying to prove a transaction that our staff proceeded with violated every code, everything in the book, and listen, Mr. Dodd, let me back up for a minute. Let me back up for a minute. Mr. Dodd, this got started by me and by Ben Hocker because you and I ran into you at Walmart and you told me about it.
No, we got started because you gave me your, Mr. Gilliams.
No, you told me
you gave
we got
me your
problems
packet
at
of
the
information.
cemetery.
I never said that to you.
You don't want to know what's going on.
This is another one of your lies. You gave me your packet of information. I looked through it. This was 3 years ago. I looked through your packet of information. I told you point blank, there is no criminal activity here. There's some stupidity on the part of a city manager who made a statement about the value of sand without being able to back it up. But there was no criminal activity. That's exactly what I told you.
Mr.
So
Mayor,
if you're going to try to make accusations
Can
against me, then we'll fight that one.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, there's a point of order.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Mayor Dodd, I would like for Mr. Gilliam to state whether he is acting as an elected official in the city of Sebastian or as a citizen of the city of Sebastian.
I don't
have to answer him.
I mean, Councilmember Hill,
He's been around for 12 years. He hasn't figured it out yet.
Councilmember Hill, he is an elected official in the city of Sebastian, and quite frankly, he cannot, and I'll ask Manny to give me a ruling on that, because he cannot act as a public citizen once he was elected, correct?
Mayor Dodd, I agree with that statement.
But
100%.
Mr. Hill, Councilmember Hill, let me let the city attorney make a statement on this one.
I agree, Mr. Mayor. Once Mr. Gilliam was elected, I don't think he could differentiate from him personally, as well as him being an elected official.
Okay, so he is acting as an elected official.
Correct.
Yes, and that is why this cannot proceed, because he's acting as an official of the city, and he continues to make these baseless accusations about our staff and previous city council members and myself, and this needs to stop, or the city of Sebastian is going to be on the hook for potentially millions of dollars.
Okay, I quite frankly, the presentation has gone on long enough, and I looked at it, and I tend to actually agree with that.
So, Mr. Mayor, here's the permit.
I tell you what I'd like to do, if you can. Would you
I'm trying to
make a
speed this
statement
up.
and get to your point?
Yes, that's what I'm trying to do, but he keeps calling a point of order.
Well,
And he's not even here.
You're the king of point of order, so it's good.
All right. Okay, so here we're doing sand mining for 18 months, according to the documents, and we have a permit issued for grubbing. And if you look under the code for grubbing, that's just scraping the top of a piece of property, not sand mining. So just let the record reflect that the city of Sebastian was, and here it is right here, grubbing, the removal of any type of rooted vegetation from the land by digging, raking, dragging, otherwise disturbing. So getting back to the special use permit, when you do an 18-month sanding operation, the city was in violation of that.
Okay, can I just
proceed.
ask you a simple question?
Done.
What do you want?
Okay.
All this stuff
I'm trying to lay the facts out so that we can make
Lay
an
the facts
educated
out
decision.
for what? What action would you like to be taken right now? I mean, I've listened to, you started this at
Here's pricing for land material.
whatever the time was.
Here's pricing for land material, just to verify that. And it's $60 to $80 a yard. Just
What
for the record.
action would you like us to take?
I'm getting to that, Mr. Mayor. I'm almost done. I've got like 3 pages left. Here, they found bodies on the property.
Yeah, I remember
body
that.
parts. And that's when city council should have raised the red flag and say, stop, what's going on down there?
Well,
But no,
I think
everybody
they did
looked,
stop.
no, excuse me, sir. Everybody looked the other way. They didn't want to know what was going on down there. But they stopped the job, and it's good old Sebastian Daily and the Press Journal, breaking news, put the
Mayor
information
Dodd, I
out.
apologize. I have to do another point of order, and I apologize to the citizens of this community.
Go ahead.
When Mr. Gilliam states everybody, I would like to know the names of those everybody's.
Jim Hill, Ivino, Linda Kitchen, Ed Dodd, and Bob McPartlin. Those are everybody.
He's answered your names.
There you go, Jim.
And so once again,
You're doing a good job.
he made accusations against 5 council members.
Correct. Sue me. So, here we go. Because this is all facts, Mr. Mayor. This is all facts. Here's the end. Anything over $25,000 in formal sealed bids, city council's authorization is required. There you go. Sebastian Code. So everybody can see it. Now, in closing, real simple. Yeah, did the Florida Department of Law Enforcement do an investigative report? Yeah, I went and met with them. Here is the report. Active start date, June 13th. Activity end date, June 13th. There was never an investigation. They never investigated anything. The local daily Sebastian Sebastian Daily put out, there was an investigation, nothing found. There was never an investigation. They opened it and shut it the same day. And here, by the way, in his report, I know better that Mr. Joe Griffin was not campaigning. I knew he was the city manager, but the guy's got that in his report. What an incomplete report. Gilliam's alleged that there was a lot of inaccusations in this report, and that's why I'm pushing it. That's why I'm bringing it to the attention of this council and to this community that the Florida Department of Law Enforcement should have did the right thing.
Okay.
So
All right.
with that, Mr. Mayor, so with that, again, in closing, I'm asking the city council if you have the fortitude, the courage, the integrity, you swore to uphold the oath of office. Under section 2.1, we can, as a council, order an investigation. The city council may make investigations into the affairs of the city and conduct of any city department, office, or agency for the purpose, may subpoena witnesses, administer oaths, take testimony, require the production of evidence. For $3,000 to $5,000, we can have a report done by an outside investigative firm. We don't have to get the police department involved because we don't want to be investigating our own. And then once that report comes back, we can find out if there's any civil or criminal activity that was taken with our staff.
Okay.
And that's what I want to get to the bottom of. I have an obligation as a duly elected official of this community to expose this. I expose the evidence. Now, it's up to this council. If you vote no for this tonight and you don't order an investigation, sir, then you're part of the problem.
So what, you're requesting that we authorize an investigation? Is that your request?
Maybe the clerk can repeat it. That's what I told you. I'm asking this council.
You're kind of insolent, you know that?
I'm asking the council.
I'm going to
make a
probably need to
motion.
take a break because I'm about ready to lose my cool up here.
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to make a motion that we proceed.
5-minute break. Councilmember Gilliams, you're still up?
Yes, sir. So, as I said after the presentation, that I'd like for this council to proceed with an investigation with an outside investigative firm, somebody from outside the area from Brevard County, and I think it should be overseen by somebody that's not affiliated with the city. And it's a $3,000 to $5,000 expense. It'll just give us an accounting of exactly what happened, and we can learn from it. We can share it with our staff to make sure that our staff doesn't violate protocol, city protocols, and they learn to do things the correct way. And to this date, it's important that we have that. Also, Mr. Mayor, I see that you also handed a document in the hallway by city staff. I'd like to get a copy of that. Is that possible?
I'll certainly make you a copy of that.
Okay, what was that document?
It's a copy of the Land Development Code, and it actually is an indication that there's an exception in the Land Development Code
Here's
section.
the question, Mr. Mayor. It's not part of the record. You have to submit that with the agenda packet like I submitted my documents. So I'm going to ask, and I'm going to object that you don't bring that document into the record. It's not been part of the agenda, and I'm objecting that you do not make that part of the record.
I won't do that. I'll not make it part of the record.
Thank you.
Okay, I can quote it without making a document part of the record. So your request, if I understand it right, just so I can state it,
I can state it. You don't need to restate it because you confuse people when you restate things. What I'm asking
Boy,
this
you're a
council...
nice guy, aren't you?
Well, it's happened already. It's happened in numerous meetings. Please, don't take it personal. I still think...
Would you
So-
state your request?
So my request is to get the council, at least 3 votes, to proceed with an investigation of exactly what transpired there.
Okay,
And
the
bring a
council
report.
can't vote to proceed. The council can vote to put that on the next agenda. That's all can be done to your matters.
Let's put it on the agenda under new business, old business. Put it under old business, Mr. City Manager? Would that
It
work
has to
for
be under
you?
new business, because we don't
Okay,
have
we'll
any...
put it under new business.
If it gets a consensus, it would have to go under new business.
Okay, so now we're going to the consensus rule, right?
Well, when it's under council members' matters, it only can be a consensus for the next agenda, or consensus to put it in the minutes, which, I mean, I could ask for a consensus to put this in the minutes, if I choose to.
So basically what I'm looking to do, and I'll restate it, is to get a consensus to direct an outside, and it could be the firm that we're using now.
Your consensus is to put it on the next agenda, not to direct a firm.
Correct, but this way staff can also put together transmittal properly to
Okay.
reflect that, let's just clear the air for the community. We have an obligation everything has been at a standstill down on that property.
Okay, so let's move forward with that. We have a request by Councilmember Gilliams that we place on our next meeting agenda an item under new business to discuss the possibility of authorizing a investigation into the purchase and I guess land development of the extension to the cemetery.
A total investigation on how they went ahead and did the site plan, removed the surplus property, if they followed all the procedures of the codes and protocols. A complete investigation, yeah.
Okay.
And bring it back to council.
All right, let's just get a vote on that. Do you, Madam Clerk, do you have enough to be able to document what that request is? Okay. Let's just get a vote on that. Councilmember Gilliams.
Yes.
Councilmember Ferris.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Malte. Councilmember Hill.
No, sir.
And I vote no. So it doesn't move forward. Okay, now, I have another matter, though, before I move out of
Wait a minute, I'm
Councilmember
not done,
Gilliams.
Mr. Mayor. That was that matter. I'm not done yet.
That's another matter.
Oh, you have other matters? I'm sorry,
Correct.
go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Appreciate that. So, sad day in Sebastian. I wanted to read a very important article that was in yesterday's paper by Larry Reisman, Press Journal. And it says, add courtesy, respect to how we treat others. As I searched for words to find solutions to some of the things I saw or heard over the weekend, I came upon a few words from the Bible. They seemed helpful to resolve. Reports from the community and seeing restaurants operating near full capacity when the state's rule is 50% without social distancing. People ignoring conspicuous signs on the front door of stores politely requesting patrons to wear face
coverings inside while COVID-19 is transmitted in our community. People ignoring one-way arrows in rows of supermarkets or on the Con Beach boardwalk in Vero Beach. An activist condoning looting is to be expected, she said, because of the increasing gap between the poor and the rich. Hearing generalizations about how certain kinds of people always act this way or that way, hearing bogus attacks, sometimes personal against Republicans, Democrats, or anyone else you don't agree with, reading inaccurate claims people repeat without doing their own research to see if they're true, watching police in Buffalo, New York, kick to the ground a 75-year-old man, then stop to help him, and if the person is known or a provocateur activist, should it matter? Watching crowds trying to provoke riot police, verbally taunting them with lasers, epithets, and other vile verbiage. Disrespect has been on Chris to display in person on our digital devices all too often lately. Aren't we better than this? Don't like what a mural says? Paint over it until it says what you want. You don't like racism? Demonstrate loudly and peacefully by all means, but don't riot and loot. Not worried about COVID-19, that's fine. But respect fellow citizens by wearing a mask, at least indoors in most situations, or outdoors when social distancing is not possible. Don't like wearing a mask while serving at a restaurant? That's your choice. I keep hearing from people who won't go back to your establishment. All of us are free to make choices. Our choices are limited from a legal standpoint. We don't have the right to break the law. Don't like the law? Vote for representatives who will change it. It's one thing to question authority, but to brazenly ignore simple requests and laws. Some of the most important choices we make are how we treat other people. That's where Leviticus 19.18 comes in. It's one place in the Bible where you can find what's sometimes called the golden rule. Do not seek revenge or bear a grudge against anyone among your people, but love your neighbor as yourself, it says. You might not believe in the Bible, God, or a higher power, or that God said these words to Moses. You might believe Leviticus no longer is valid, but can we agree to follow at least the advice offered in the last 5 words of Leviticus 19.18? Love your neighbor as yourself. How about some other admonishments in chapter 19, such do not steal, lie, prevent justice, endanger your neighbor's life, commit slander, or spread gossip. None of us is perfect, but can't we try a little harder and think a little more before we speak and act? Would things get better? Indian River County has one of the largest income gaps in the country. It has a racial education gap. Experts say they're related. As Mr. Reisman wrote in 2012, illiteracy is the devil that destroys opportunity, that limits job prospects, and increases the likelihood for trouble. An estimated 85% of juvenile offenders have reading problems. Study after study proves communities with higher literacy rates have fewer problems. Spend less time and money on reading remediations, social services, and fighting crime, etc. These community standards of living, as they produce a better workforce, are much better. Folks in Indian River County are trying to close that gap for the school board, its equity committee, educators, to the Learning Alliance of Indian River County, a nonprofit that helps pay for education, all programs. The school district is required to work on this. It's embarrassingly still under a 53-year-old federal desegregation order. But how can we tackle things as complicated as race and education if we can't respect each other in a simple ways? Instead of tearing people down in the name of partisanship, can we respect each other? How about saying hello to your neighbor or someone you pass on the sidewalk or in the shopping center, the parking lot? A little basic courtesy might go a long way. Thank you, Larry Reisman. I just wanted to share that with the community. I thought that was important, and I'm going to end it there. As far as, there was a few issues that were brought up this evening I'm not going to really comment on, because I don't think it will be productive. I think it'll be counterproductive as to the former police chief, some of the remarks that she made and Mrs. Cole made. I want to move forward with this community, Mr. Mayor. I feel that the 6 months that we've been here almost, we've got very little done. We had to go to court to get our meetings back. We got our meetings back. I look at tonight's agenda, there's nothing on it. I've asked for citizens volunteer program. I have not seen it. We asked about the hotel down on Indian River Drive. Nothing's happened on it. If I go back, and I keep all my books with me, I have them here. If I go through all my agendas, we're accomplishing very little. And last but not least, I want to thank the Chief of Police for his thankful letter to the community on Facebook. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
All right, Councilmember Ferris.
Consider a 15-minute time limit to discuss agenda items, except in cases of emergency resolution of ordinance. And I'm suggesting that to maintain order in respect to city business, as Councilman Gillian just mentioned, to proceed in a timely manner because it's not being done.
Okay, could you, you're talking about a 15-minute time limit on what part of the agenda?
All agenda items individually.
Okay, you're talking about a 15-minute time limit on public input?
No.
Let me go down the list. So on each individual item under unfinished business or finished or new business, et cetera, a 15-minute time limit on each one?
Yes, just to prevent this from going on. And
So
on
does
as
that
it's
mean
going.
that we would have, for 5 council members, we'd have about 3 minutes each?
Oh, no, 15 each.
15 each, okay, so it's 15 minutes per person.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
And if
we
we
could
didn't
have,
come
that
to a
would be an hour and
solution.
15-minute time limit on an individual item then. Okay. And I don't, I mean, an ordinance, yeah, I mean, that's fine, so.
Okay, just, suggestion. I have some comments.
On,
No,
okay, well, no, I'm just, are you comments about this?
no.
Okay, so are you asking that we put this on an agenda?
Yes.
Okay, so Councilmember Ferris would like for us to get a vote to determine whether we want to put a discussion on our next agenda about time limits on agenda items. A yes vote would say would indicate we would put it on the agenda. A no vote, we would not put it on the agenda. Let's go, Councilmember Hill.
No.
Vice Mayor Malte.
No.
And I vote no.
Okay, that's
Okay.
fine.
All right, so you have other items?
I do.
Okay.
I just want to assure the public that the staff and committees are working diligently about the canal issues. It'll be completed with integrity and respect for our public health and lagoon. We've been working on it a long time, and I'm proud of what we're doing. Thank you, staff. I'd like to correct the allegations that 3 city council members are under criminal state investigation. The fact is 5 city council members and 3 staff employees are under state attorney investigation. I know that because I called the office April 24th. And remind all that I chose to represent myself in the recent court hearing in respect of the city spending. A citizen emailed all of us actually expressing concern for our homeless situation, and he didn't respond to my email, so I'm asking if he's listening to contact me because I'd like to participate. And my city number is 772-584-2336. And lastly, I'd like to ask the city manager when we can expect the airport building workshop, and remind Mr. Hill that his presence is an option.
So I was going to try to bring that up in the, well, that actually got voted down to not have the workshop on the,
right.
on the building. That was
Right.
voted, it was a 3-2 vote against
Yes.
having the workshop.
That was a 4-1 vote.
Was it a 4-1?
Yes, sir.
I apologize.
That's okay.
But it was voted to not have the workshop. So we were going to bring it into second meeting in June, try to bring it in the second meeting in June for consideration.
Okay.
Well, Mr. Mayor, since
Yes.
you brought that up, and I was in that vote, 4-1, I can bring it back.
So I would love to bring that back as a discussion item and put it on the agenda so that we can discuss why we should have a workshop on that. So if you want to put that on, since I was in since I was in the no vote.
So confusing, because now we're back under your matters. So you would like to recall, okay, Mr. City Attorney, if Councilmember Gilliam sends a notice to the city manager that he would like to recall a vote, is that sufficient to have it recalled?
I'm confused. You mean as far as reconsideration?
He'd like to reconsider a vote that he was in the majority on.
Then if that's his position, he would like to reconsider his vote, which was last meeting, then the council member is entitled to a reconsideration.
Okay, so is it sufficient for him to send a notice to the city manager that he would like to reconsider the vote? Is that sufficient to get it on the agenda?
Yeah.
That's fine, but I'm not understanding the issue. You want to put it under old business to reconsider that vote?
That's what he wants to. That's what he wants to do.
And,
Point of order, Mayor Dodd.
That's fine.
That's fine.
Mayor Dodd.
Yes, sir.
Mayor Dodd, that was not. There was no motion made on that. That was for a consensus. So this cannot be put on the agenda unless there's a consensus agreement that it should be put on the agenda. Not just a letter from Damien.
So that was a motion for a consensus to put it on the agenda? That was not a motion to hold the workshop. That was a motion for a consensus.
Yeah, I need to look at that.
Of course, Mayor Dodd, Mr. Anand, I apologize. But of course it was not a motion made because it was under council matters.
Okay.
No action.
All right, I got it. So can we reconsider a consensus vote?
No, not. I thought it was a motion for. I thought there was a motion and it was voted upon, and he was a minority. That's why, if he wants us to look it up, we can look it up. I was not sure about that. That's will be a correct course of action. But if you're telling me now that it was brought up from his personal matters, then the answer is no.
No.
Well, let's just find out if we can, since I was in that
Point of order, Mayor Dodd.
Excuse me, I was talking.
No, it's a point of order. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Mayor Dodd, Mr. Gilliam's time has already expired. Also, my time was skipped, which I'll accept which is fine.
Did I
and
skip
I will take
you?
my time after Ms. Paris.
Oh.
Mr. Gilliam already had his opportunity to speak whatever it is he wanted to do.
All right, I agree with your point of order. Is it that God, this is such a.
It's all right, I'll wait.
City Attorney, would you please investigate that and determine whether that was a consensus vote? And if it was a consensus vote, will you notify the council members that it is not something that can be recalled?
I will do that and email all 5 council members.
Thank you, sir. All right, now, were you finished, Councilmember Ferris? Yeah, I'm sorry, Councilmember Hill, that I skipped you. I think I've done that twice now. Both times you were on Zoom, and I just don't see you in the chair, so I get confused. So it's your turn, sir.
That's okay. Thank you very much. And Ms. Paris, I do understand that you want to give me a pop every now and then, and that's okay because the governor said that I can also Zoom into these meetings, and so I am doing that. So I just wanted to say that I think staff is doing a wonderful job, and I want to apologize to the public because, you know, that diatribe by Mr. Gilliams and my interrupting, and I'm so against all of that, but the problem we face here is that the city of Sebastian could potentially face millions of dollars in lawsuits based on his lies. Much of what he's saying are lies. And, you know, he's already been told that he cannot continue making these defamation per se. He's already been given that defamation.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor. That's not true. I put everything, point of order, Jim. Point of order, Jim.
Just a second. I'm sorry, we have a point of order. Your point of order is?
Everything I put out there was factual. It was all city documents from the clerk. For him to be slandering me, he needs to be careful.
All right. The way I look at this is I read this stuff and
it was all public documents.
It was all public documents.
Thank you.
But your interpretation of that was your opinion. So his interpretation is, and I will ask you, Councilmember Hill, to please not be quite so slanderous if it's possible.
Understood. I don't know that it's slander if it's true, but I understand that. So I will continue. The reason for my interruption was because I'm doing my best to try to protect the city from potential litigation that could cost us millions of dollars. right now we have a decent fund in our reserves, and that is potentially in jeopardy based on what's going on this council right now. So I'm doing my best to try to protect that. That aside, I want to thank our police force for everything they're going through right now. I very much appreciate the hard work that you guys put in, and gals. I want to thank also all of our first responders, our EMTs, our firefighters, and on our police. But I want you all to know that I will stand with you always, and I've got your six. So if there's ever a question about any of that, I've got you.
All right, thank you, sir. Is that it?
Yes, sir.
All right. I've got several matters, and I'm going to apologize because a couple of these may take a few minutes. But but the first thing I want to say is that I don't know, gosh, about 5 months ago, or 6 months ago, maybe longer, Chief Morris was standing in the back of the room, and I made a comment about watching some television shows where some of the big police departments in the Northeast were trying to figure out how to do community policing. And I volunteered to have them come down here and talk to the Sebastian Police Department, and she's shaking her head sideways, please, no, no, no. But I see the stuff that's happening today. We have a tear in the fabric of our democracy happening right now, and I see the response is taking place in a lot of cities talking about things like defunding police. What they need to do is come down and look at the Sebastian Police Department. They take protect and serve. They take the serve part of that as seriously as they take the protect side of that. They're a very highly community-based police department. They spend as much time collecting food for food banks as they do patrolling the streets and writing speeding tickets. So I think that we are extremely lucky in Sebastian in these times that are going on right now that we don't have to worry about our police department. They're a true joy, quite frankly, compared to what I'm seeing in a lot of other areas in the country. So I want to bring that forward. I think it's an important thing for us to remember that everybody in this country is going to have to do something to get this fabric of our democracy repaired, and at least we don't have to worry about our police department in that process. Now, I have something that I consider to be very critical. When Councilmember Gilliam started his comments, I told him that if he used defamatory language that I was going to put an admonishment in writing. Well, I am intending to do that. These are kind of like whereas clause I want to bring forward. On February 12, 2020 meeting, Councilmember Gilliam was admonished by our city attorney at the time, Jim Stokes, for what he said was defamation per se, which meant, of course, that it's easily won in court. And that's my easiest way I can define that. And the attorney also said that if the council allows him to continue with these comments, the council is accepting liability. And at that time, we took a 3-2 vote for him not to continue with these comments. Specifically, at that point in time, the council directed him not to continue. On May the 27th, ex-councilmember Andrea Coy presented to the council a letter asking that Councilmember Gilliam discontinue accusing her and other former council members of wrongdoing and alleged criminal activity. She indicated in that letter that she will take legal action against the city, and Councilmember Gilliam doesn't stop. There are other parties that are now discussing taking legal action against Councilmember Gilliam and the city. Again tonight, after warnings, and I believe I warned him 3 times, Councilmember Gilliam continued to allege criminal activity on the part of past or present council members and staff members. So what I'm asking the council to do is to give me a consensus vote that I can place this in the minutes of the meeting. And I've got 3 points I want to place in the minutes of the meeting. First is that we admonish Councilmember Gilliam for his continued reference to criminal activity related to the cemetery expansion. Second point is that we indicate that Councilmember Gilliam is not representing the position of the city of Sebastian, its council, or its staff. Third point is that Councilmember Gilliam is solely responsible for his comments or accusations related to this matter, which may be made in or outside of official council meetings. Now, I'm aware 100%, as our city attorney told us, that we can't separate him officially from the things he does personally, and I'm also aware that the city can't absolve itself as liability. But I would like to get the consensus of this council that I can place this admonishment in the record so we at least are saying that we don't condone that activity. So this does not require any comments. It just basically requires a consensus vote. So I'd like to take that vote now. Councilmember Hill.
Absolutely.
Vice Mayor Malte?
Yes.
And I vote yes on that, so it's a 3-2 vote. You, yes, you vote yes? You do? Okay. And you vote no, so it's a 4-1 vote. Madam City Clerk, I'm going to put this up here. I have crossed out one sentence on that, but that is what I'd like placed in the record.
Doesn't that
That's
go...
my work product that I can place in
Mr.
the
Mayor,
record.
doesn't that go to, a consensus to get on the agenda?
No, it goes to a consensus. I'm only asking that a work product be placed in the minutes
And
of the meeting.
I'm going to object to that and let the record reflect that.
Okay.
That would apply to everyone, as a matter of fact, right?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, not singling out
I'm
council.
not singling out. He could ask for work product to be put in the minutes. You could do that. I mean, I could have asked for this that was handed to me by the city staff to be put in the minutes, but I chose not to because it really doesn't change the matter of the fact that I need to do that. You can ask for something to be put in the minutes, yes. Okay, now my next thing. Contrary to statements that were made tonight, myself, Paul Carlisle, neither one are under investigation by the state's attorney's office. Period. The other thing I'd like to correct on the state's attorney's issue is that Vice Mayor Malte was not charged with a crime. He was charged with a non-criminal violation of the Sunshine Law. So I don't say that because I defend any action that was taken by Vice Mayor Malte, but I think it's fair to clear up the record that what he was charged with last Thursday, I guess it was a non-criminal violation of the Sunshine Law, just so people understand that that's what was done. And also, just so it gets clear for the record, because I heard somebody bring it up, there is absolutely no such thing as a reorganization of this council. Our charter has no provision for doing that. It would be an improper motion if it was made. It would not get a vote. The charter is very specific and clear about that. The fact that it was done several years ago was bad legal advice by the city attorney, and you just don't have to justify taking action today based on bad legal advice from the city attorney. I have a written, you want to say something? No, okay.
I was just listening. He wasn't a city attorney, he was an acting city attorney.
An acting city attorney, yes, okay, that made that bad advice. I've passed this in front of 3 legal experts, and they all agree with me. There is no such thing as reorganizing this council under this charter. You're stuck with me as the mayor until the first meeting in November of this year. Then you can elect a new mayor, if you choose to. Okay. And at that point in time, whatever happens, happens. All right. The other thing was the reason we didn't have any meetings wasn't because we were keeping this room in the dark. And Judge Kroom ruled specifically that I was correct and legal in the declaration of a municipal emergency. Judge Kroom ruled specifically that the city manager was the emergency manager in that declaration. And the city manager canceled meetings for a month and a half as a result of the COVID-19 virus and the fact that we could not legally have those meetings under the governor's specifications. It wasn't to keep this room in the dark. It was not to hide anything from anybody in the city. It was that specific reason. The March 18th meeting we held primarily because we had 3 council members who had not been through this before, and we wanted to go through that process and wanted to do an announcement of what was being done. I did close that March 18th meeting, and I'll defend that action because what I was trying to do is to move a quasi-judicial hearing, which we could not hold legally, to the further meeting, and when I received from the council 3 votes not allowing me to do that, I was stuck in a box. I'm chairing a meeting, and I either have to hold an illegal quasi-judicial hearing or I close the meeting. So I chose to close the meeting. I'll let some judge in the future determine whether I did the right thing or not. I believe that I did the right thing morally and legally, and I stand behind that. So that's it. That's all I've got for this evening. If there's anything else for the good of the order, please bring it forward. None? We are adjourned.